Warrior Lore. Chapter 327 On the Edge of Life and Death. Chapter 327 On the Edge of Life and Death. I have read a little bit about the mutant martial spirit. Your situation is quite special. Let me take a look. Perhaps I can find a solution for you. The hierarchy of the corpse's god sect gently said and slightly laughed. His laughter sounded gloomy and freaky as many green flames flickered in his dark green eyes and seemed very excited. After finishing his words, Qingming immediately took actions without waiting for ChiYan's agreement. With the God Realm cultivation base, after slightly swaying his body, Qingming looked like a floating cloud, instantly appeared in front of ChiYan. Qingming's grim mask, gloomy voice, and green eyes could give people an imagination of a fun fire flame in a night. He stretched out his gloved hand, his fingers bent, forming a claw or a hook, and then slowly aimed for ChiYan's abdomen. A strand of strange green silk, like a small worm, appeared on his fingertips, bringing along the corpse aura of the superb adjoined corpse's flame. It was like a living creature penetrating ChiYan's abdomen. "Thank you. Don't bother." ChiYan sneered while his left hand, wearing the blood vein ring, blocked Qingming's hand. The icy light flared up in ChiYan's eyes as the aura from his body became cold. In a blink, the mountain peak looked as if it had been replaced by ice and snow. However, this freezing temperature was nothing to Qingming. Swoosh! When ChiYan's left palm touched the 5 fingers of Qingming's hand, a strand of strange green silk suddenly darted out, crazily barging in ChiYan's palm. Right after ChiYan's hand had twinged, its bones instantly fragmented. As soon as the strand of green silk went through his palm, it smashed all the power that hindered its way, running along the wrist straight up to the arm. "I only have good intentions," Qingming said while the flame in Qingming's eyes was getting more radiant. "The power that I have launched might be a little too harsh to you, but I hope you understand that your hand's broken bones can easily be healed under the effect of your immortal martial spirit. As long as you don't resist it, that power of mine will not harm you further." ChiYan's face remained calm, as if he didn't feel his left hand had been crumbled. There was even no sign of grimace or pain on his face. He could clearly feel that that strand of green silk was running along the vessels in his arm, going straight up, aiming for the profound cheese beam of light in his abdomen. ChiYan's sense had alerted him during the whole process. That's good, though. Out of Qingming's expectation, ChiYan suddenly relaxed, stopped using his icy power to resist. Instead, he comfortably stood still, watching Qingming's strand of silk, letting it freely penetrate into the profound cheese beam of light in his abdomen. Qingming's eyes suddenly brightened as he felt a little astonished at heart. Didn't know why ChiYan willingly cooperated like that. Qingming stopped thinking, concentrated all of his power into the whirling flow of air at the profound cheese beam of light in ChiYan's abdomen. Afterward, the greenish power suddenly spread out everywhere from inside ChiYan's abdomen, running along his vessels, creeping into every corner in his body. ChiYan's face changed. Qingming revealed a wicked smile. In just a few seconds, Qingming's power had already occupied more than half of ChiYan's body, running to most of the areas in his body, except for 2 places. One was his head, and the other was his wrist. Qingming's strand of silk emitted thousands of beams of power but couldn't penetrate into ChiYan's head by any means, as well as his wrist, impossibly took even one step further. The green light burst out in Qingming's eyes. Warrior Lore. Suddenly, thousands of Qingming's beams of power inside ChiYan's body condensed and gathered at his wrist to make a sudden breakthrough with the terrifying devilish aura, which was 12 times stronger than before. "It seems that the problem is on your wrist. Just relax. I will use my full power to penetrate in there to see." As soon as the 5 fingers of Qingming let go of ChiYan's left hand, the light in his eyes concentrated and instantly launched out. ChiYan sneered, revealing a smile that was as sharp as a saber. Right at this moment, the blood vein ring on his left hand darted many rays of red light like a shower, covering ChiYan's palm. The blood vein ring contained a crystal chunk that confined the 9 Serenity's soul-devouring flame. Presently, this crystal chunk had been cracked open, a small slit that freed the 9 Serenity's soul-devouring flame after a long time of confinement. It then turned into a powerful flow of silver light that destroyed layers upon layers of the blood vein ring's bondage. The dark red halo seemed to cover ChiYan's entire body. As soon as the blood vein ring flashed and the 9 Serenity's soul-devouring flame immediately got out of that crystal chunk, the 9 Serenity's soul-devouring flame condensed into a small face looked like a group of clouds converging at the top of Qingming's head. That little face revealed an exotic smile and suddenly spouted a flow of filthy air that enclosed Qingming's head. Qingming's eyes became dazed. Countless rays of light in Qingming's left eyes condensed into a face. That face was horrible, and it was putting its maximum power in condensing all of the green dots of light in both of his eyes. Momentarily, when a green halo suddenly appeared atop Qingming's head, layers after layers of those green dots clung onto that halo like stars in the sky. The disgusting air that the 9 Serenity's soul-devouring flame had spat out turned into some kind of liquid attaching to Qingming's halo and quickly eroded it. However, the green dots of light that were sticking onto the halo also quickly gathered, forming a mysterious formation, emitting some kind of power that startled other people. A terrifying transformation appeared in Qingming's eyes while ChiYan's eyes became sharp and icy cold. Qingming suddenly felt something wrong. ChiYan's eyes were cold. A trace of sarcasm beamed out of the corner of his mouth. He suddenly retracted his left hand and slowly lifted his right arm in front of his chest at the same time. Anger inflamed in Qingming's eyes. Many flows of spiritual consciousness, which were like a shower pouring down from the galaxy, dementedly shot out, attacking ChiYan. Swoosh! An exotic flow of light showed up between ChiYan and Qingming, bringing along an alarming energy fluctuation. Qingming's soul consciousness, which had been released, were all blocked, impossibly dashed forward. At the foot of the sacred light mountain, the 3 people of Tianma's group displayed a stern look on their faces with solemn eyes and also emitted the murderous aura. Numerous warriors who were standing close to the 3 of them had realized their horrendous aura and thus instantly moved far away from them, extending the distance between them. Qingming's soul consciousness was totally halted. Even before he could retract his hand, a soul swirl suddenly appeared and crazily attacked toward his sea of consciousness as if it wanted to smash it down completely. "I have acted recklessly," Qingming hurriedly screamed out, looking at ChiYan in fear and said, "I actually didn't have any malicious intent. ChiYan, don't be too merciless. Spare an exit for later." "I don't spare anything," ChiYan said with a cold face, "because we will never see each other again." Qingming's eyes tragically changed. He was about to put all of his power forth to fight back. Unexpectedly, a soul force suddenly penetrated his body, depriving his control of the body. ChiYan was very calm, tried to lift his right arm grabbing Qingming's heart. "Arrogant brat." 2 soul flows, as soft as cotton, interfered at the critical point of time all of a sudden. These 2 soul flows were as flexible as a rattan rope binding the soul consciousness of the 3 people of Tianma's group. Qingming's sea of consciousness immediately returned to its normal state, regained the control of the body in just a blink. A powerful force massively swarmed over. Crack, crack. The bones of ChiYan's left hand fragmented again. Qingming pushed his wrist forward with all of his strength. ChiYan's face changed while he instantly used his right hand to launch a full power attack. Boom! Landslide-like power poured down into the ground, dragging ChiYan's power into the inside of the mountain. Qingming's punch fell into the air, missed ChiYan. Qingming was about to continue taking actions, but realized that the green halo on the top of his head had lost some layers of light. The little face of the 9 Serenity's soul-devouring flame had become clearer, slowly moving closer to his head. The green light in Qingming's eyes burst out. He no longer paid attention to ChiYan, but instead, he put all of his strength to deal with the 9 Serenity's soul-devouring flame. A wind-piercing sound suddenly came up at Qingming's side, and a figure then slowly appeared. It turned out to be Tang Yuannan. After having shown up and threw a quick glance at Qingming's current state, Tang Yuannan couldn't help but slightly utter in surprise, "Heaven flame." "It is ChiYan's." Qingming gritted his teeth, snorted and said, "Hierarchy Tang, do you want to have this heaven flame?" Right at this moment, the sound of footsteps came up. It seemed that some people were coming. Chapter 328, Brazen Intimidation. Chapter 328, Brazen Intimidation. At the foot of the sacred light mountain, the figures of the three people of Tianma's group were slightly agitated while they felt backbone-chilling cold. Their soul consciousness immediately spread out, covering the entire entrance to the sacred light mountain. The warriors surrounding were also frightened, running away to extend the distance between them furthermore. Under their horrified look, the three of them suddenly opened their gloomy and malevolent eyes, which looked like icy dew, flexed their legs, and dashed forward. Li Fu, who was standing in the front and in charge of blocking the way, now became numb with stiffened face. He laughed and hastily moved forward to prevent them. Sorry. No invite, cannot enter. The three people of Tianma's group didn't utter any words, nor had any regard to Li Fu's words. Instead, they quickly turned into three flows of light storming forward. Li Fu's face changed dramatically. He wanted to hinder them but realized that they had already disappeared without leaving a trace. He hurriedly transmitted a message up to the mountain, informing that the three of them had gone up to the mountain. The crowd surrounding was extremely astonished, bewilderedly watching the three people's figures that were quickly fading away, as well as Li Fu's urgent act in transmitting the message. They then discussed with each other boisterously. They didn't expect that the three people of Tianma's group had dared to break the rules of the Three Gods sect even when they were in the other's territory. In a cave at the flank of the mountain, ChiYan was remaining calm with precautions while his cold eyes stared at Qingming. Qingming's limbs were a little bungled. Under the intimidation of the Nine Serenity's soul-devouring flame, he had to sweat his blood in resistance and, at the same time, enticed Tang Yuannan into taking actions to prevent its attack. Tang Yuannan surprisingly looked at ChiYan's legs, which had sunk about 10 meters deep into the ground, then shifted his eyes watching the crater caused by ChiYan's subduing palm. He contemplated for a while before giving a forced smile, then said, "ChiYan, retrieve your heaven flame. Otherwise, I will not have mercy." While speaking, Tang Yuannan quietly walked over behind Qingming and discreetly sent ChiYan a message. Two people of the Yin-Yang Wonderland are on the way here, bringing one kind of peculiar treasure that can definitely dominate your soul-devouring flame. You should not act rashly. ChiYan was agitated in his heart, instantly transmitted a message into the blood vein ring, then lifted his left hand, pointing the blood vein ring toward the Nine Serenity soul-devouring flame. The crystal chunk inside the blood vein ring that had confined the Nine Serenity soul-devouring flame suddenly flared up a strong light. A powerful attraction force spread along with that light, quickly grabbing and pulling back the Nine Serenity soul-devouring flame, which was about to take resistance. After having finished everything, ChiYan slightly grinned, looked at Tang Yuannan and said, "Don't blame me. Hierarchy Qingming has intentionally explored the mystery of my body, but hasn't expected to find the heaven flame in my body resulted in this situation." Seeing the Nine Serenity's soul-devouring flame disappeared, Qingming quickly retrieved the green halo atop his head. The green dots of light attached on that halo also returned to his eyes. Listening to what ChiYan said, Qingming coldly snorted with a trace of cruelty in his eyes, didn't say anything. At this moment, two figures were approaching side by side from the foot of the mountain. One of them was a man who was very good-looking with full of a mature man's charm. The other was a graceful woman who emitted the exceptionally mesmerizing aura. Any men who caught her glance would gradually lose their mind and become dazed. That was an experienced woman. Her charming body was heart-stirring with perfect curves, especially her ample bosom, which was as if it just wanted to tear apart her blouse to come out. Her graceful rear end were big and round. Every time she walked, the left and right cheeks kept rippling, which indulged other people and made them unable to wake up from that mesmerizing feeling. The two palace masters of the Yang Wonderland are here. Ha ha ha, I am still surprised with the two flows of swirling power earlier. Tang Yuannan smiled, looked at the two palace masters, and nodded. Although Tang Yuannan was wearing a broad smile on his face, actually, he was secretly informing ChiYan what had happened. ChiYan understood immediately. Previously, These two palace masters of the yin-yang wonderland were the ones who had taken actions at that critical point of time. That year when he had entered the endless sea, ChiYan, and he had temporarily been lodging in a vessel of the yin-yang wonderland. That vessel had brought them straight to the corpse burial plot number 93 of the Corpse's God sect. Afterward, he figured out that the Corpse's God sect and yin-yang wonderland had a deep relationship. This time, when the three people of Tianma's group had suppressed the soul of the Corpse's God sect's hierarchy at the flank of the mountain, these two palace masters had used some secret technique to support Qingming. As a result, he had been able to escape the suppression and simultaneously launched a counterattack that had injured ChiYan. In the cave, ChiYan squinted, looking at the King of Earth and the Queen of Sky of yin-yang wonderland with an odd face. Such an arrogant little rascal. The King of Earth slowly walked over, cast a cold glance at ChiYan and laughed softly. That year, Yang Tian Emperor wasn't this haughty like you. However, since then, the Yang family's later generations have been more arrogant than the previous ones. No wonder why other forces have united to sweep them out of the endless sea. The Queen of Sky was exceptionally mesmerizing, smiled alluringly while looking at ChiYan with meaningful eyes, said sweetly, "Newborn calves are not afraid of tigers. A young man with great vigor is very praiseworthy. I like it." Her voice was very gentle and sweet, as if it could be carved deeply in people's hearts. After listening what she had said, ChiYan felt as though he was immersed in a bathtub filled with hundreds of flowers. All pores on his body opened, indescribably relaxing. Suddenly, a flow of icy aura came up from the blood vein ring. This flow was like a bucket of cold water splashing onto his body, pulling him to the light from some dark, gloomy corner. ChiYan's head was agitated. His pupils suddenly regained the brightness, looking at the charming, heart-stirring Queen of Sky who was even more terrifying than the King of Earth. Having said only a few words, this woman had already made him unable to control his mind, dazzled his head, and almost beaten him. This powerful mind control technique truly frightened ChiYan out of his wit. His face changed dramatically as he quickly communicated with the ice-cold flame, asking it to remind him all the time. The mesmerizing eyes of the Queen of Sky brightened in shock as she felt horrified at heart seeing ChiYan's reactions. In her eyes, this full-blooded ChiYan was impossible to withstand her words' magic. However, he could unexpectedly recover after having been stunned just for a short period. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. 3 gusts of wind pierced through the air coming up from behind. Not long after that, the 3 people of Tianma's group appeared next to ChiYan. They immediately surrounded ChiYan to protect him. Tianma's cold eyes then aimed straight at Qingming. At the same time, they shot out a gray stream of light. Yimeng's and Kaba's countenance were unfriendly, furiously stared at Qingming, seemed to be about to launch their most horrifying soul attacks. Qingming's eyes became cold while he subconsciously took one step backward and stood together with the King of Earth and the Queen of Sky of the yin-yang wonderland. The 3 people of Tianma's group happened to be on a confrontation course with Qingming, the Queen of Sky, and the King of Earth. The situation was extremely tense. Tang Yuannan's face slightly changed. He frowned and said with a serious tone, "Gentlemen, this place is the 3 God sect. ChiYan, don't do anything rash. Do you really want to engage in a fight here?" Tang Yuannan looked at the 3 people of Qingming's group, but actually, he was secretly using his soul to send ChiYan a message. "We are now under threats of the demon dwellers. A tragedy is coming. This is not the time to cause any internal conflicts. If you want to deal with them, wait until this matter is solved. You 3, I think everyone gathers here to discuss the solution to dealing with demon dwellers. Is it so?" Tang Yuannan looked at the 3 people of Qingming's group. Both groups of ChiYan and Qingming were still gazing at each other unfriendly, didn't say anything. At this moment, Chao Zhilan and Mangu of the uncultivated barbarian sect were walking side by side, approaching them. Mangu's face was pale, but his spirit was not bad. Although he had been injured from the fight with ChiYan, he seemed to have significantly recovered thanks to Chao Zhilan's pellets. What happened? Chao Zhilan was a little bit astonished, looking at ChiYan and those of Qingming's group respectively, then frowned. "Demon dwellers have not come yet. but you have already wanted to cause an internal war? Lady Chow, that little rascal has taken actions first. Qingming pointed at ChiYan and said coldly, that little rascal has released ruthless attacks. If the Queen of Sky and the King of Earth haven't been nearby, I could have been defeated by his fatal strike. I don't think that he has any intention of uniting with us to deal with the demon dwellers. Chao Zhilan was astonished. She suspiciously shifted her eyes toward ChiYan and then back to Qingming before speaking up. ChiYan cannot gather profound qi. How could he harm you? She was very curious. Since she had left the manor, her head had been occupied with discouraging thoughts about ChiYan. In her eyes, as he could no longer gather profound qi, his future would certainly be limited, though he still possessed some mysteries in his body. However, after only one day, at the flank of this mountain, Qingming had almost tasted ChiYan's fatal strike. She didn't know what the current situation was. Chao Zhilan's beautiful eyes glinted with a strange beam of light. She was full of suspicion, didn't know whether Qingming was telling the truth or not. Let's go. ChiYan suddenly turned around, walked down the mountain while his eyes remained calm. Tang Yuannan's face slightly changed. The three people of Qingming, the Queen of Sky, and the King of Earth were also surprised, didn't know why ChiYan was coming down the mountain. The three people of Tianma's group followed ChiYan without uttering a word. ChiYan. Tang Yuannan dropped his jaw in astonishment with complicated eyes. He guessed something should have gone wrong. I don't have any interest in the endless sea situation, nor any attachments here, and I am not worried about demon dwellers' slaughter in the seas, ChiYan ruthlessly said. How many people die in this sea doesn't have anything matters to me, and the endless sea is not worthy for me to care. So, you guys can take your time to discuss the plan for dealing with the demon dwellers. I am not interested in it. After a short pause, ChiYan suddenly turned around, calmly looked at Qingming, the Queen of Sky, and the King of Earth and said, I hope the corpses God Sect and Yin-Yang Wonderland are blessed because besides facing the demon dwellers, you guys probably will have to deal with our attack. I honestly hope that you can handle this. The faces of Qingming, the Queen of Sky, and the King of Earth changed dramatically. Chapter 329. Regardless of consequences. Chapter 329. Regardless of consequences. Afterward, ChiYan determinedly left as he had said and didn't give other people a chance to explain. He followed the same path, coming back to the foot of the mountain. Tang Yuannan's face darkened, coldly looked at the three people of Qingming's group and said, I think you three have troubles. Qingming, the Queen of Sky, and the King of Earth exchanged looks, slightly knitted their eyebrows, but didn't seem to worry too much. They thought that they didn't need to be worried, because although Tianma's group was dangerous, they themselves also had God Realm cultivation base, plus the corpse's God Sect had the King Corpse. Chao Zhilan frowned, whined within her heart, looking at the Queen of Sky. Aunt Xiang, throwing your back at him is not a wise move. The Yin-Yang Wonderland's Queen of Sky was Fan Shangyun. After having listened to Chao Zhilan, she laughed out loud, blinking while the end of her eyebrows arched slightly, looking toward Chao Zhilan then asked, Little Lan Zi, why did you say so? The Yin-Yang Wonderland and Chao family both based in the Tuda Sea, in which the Chao family was the strongest force, far surpassed the other three forces. When Chao Zhilan had been little, she had been like a boy, a little wild. As Chao Chodao hadn't seen her be like a girl, he had brought her to Yin-Yang Wonderland so that the Queen of Sky Fan Shangyun could have taught her for a while. Therefore, her relationship with the Queen of Sky was quite close, and Fan Shangyun was also considered as her master. Because of that, Fan Shangyun had started calling her Little Lan Zi since she had still been a little girl, and when she grew up, Fan Shangyun still called her that way. It proved that their feelings for each other were not shallow. Aunt Xiang, this guy ChiYan is lunatic. Once he says something, he will definitely do it. Chao Zhilan beamed a forced smile. Although he cannot gather profound qi, those pagans still respect him as before. As you and others have offended him, I am afraid that those pagans will launch a counterattack. They are only 3 pagans. When we 3 unite, even if we might still be slightly inferior, but together with the King Corpse of the Corpse's God Sect, our strength should not be less than theirs. Fan Shangyun looked a little strange, Many rays of light were shot out from her beautiful eyes, which could dazzle others' mind. She revealed a smile and said, "What? You don't believe in Auntie?" ChiYan shook her head, whining, "That's not their real ability. Those 3 pagans take only half of their strength. On the Snow Dragon Island, there are another 2 pagans who are even more intimidating than those 3 guys. When these 5 God Realm warriors unite, Aunt Xiang, tell me if you have a chance to win or not, let alone that you have to face the Demon Dwellers' invasion." After having listened to what ChiYan had said, the faces of Qingming, the Queen of Sky, and the King of Earth changed instantly. Tang Yuannan's eyes glinted with a beam of light. He quietly evaluated ChiYan a little bit, and then slightly nodded. "This is what I have worried about." Those 5 pagans remain calm, due to their relationship with ChiYan. If the 5 of them don't aim at the demon dwellers but at you guys, the consequence is indeed unimaginable. "Why didn't you say it earlier?" Qingming said with a gloomy voice, kept feeling doleful within his heart, quietly blamed Tang Yuannan for hiding the information from him. "I have kept warning you, but you haven't listened to me. You have too much of interest in the heaven flame in ChiYan's body. Your interest was unduly excessive that I had to up." Tang Yuannan shook his head reluctantly, released a sigh and said, "I am going to talk reasons to him now. I hope he will listen to me. Otherwise, you 3 should come up with a solution by yourselves." Having finished his words, Tang Yuannan slowly disappeared in front of other people's eyes. 15 minutes later, a freaky buzzing sound came up in front of ChiYan. Tang Yuannan suddenly appeared. "ChiYan, calm down." Tang Yuannan made a forced smile while blocking his way, because Qingming also has a heaven flame. He thus has had a greedy intention. However, after everything has happened, I think he would not dare to act recklessly again. Currently, the Demon Dweller's menace is right in front of us. If you cause any chaos now, the Endless Sea will truly be in more dangers. Do you really want to irritate other forces so that they will unite to deal with you? If so, I don't think you will be in peace. ChiYan contemplated, didn't say anything. It was not because of Tang Yuannan's words that he would change his mind. If you act like that, the consequence will not be different from the Yang family's current situation. Tang Yuannan hesitated a little bit before continuing. If you make other people your enemies, you will be isolated and become a target of others' dispraises. Even if you have powerful and mighty forces, you still cannot stand against the entire Endless Sea. Let alone that the Chao family and Martial Holy Palace are also very terrifying. If these 2 forces unite, you will have nothing except for a catastrophic end. How powerful are the Chao family and Martial Spirit Palace? ChiYan asked with a low tone. If Chao Qiudao and Yang Yitian release their full power strikes without caring about injuring themselves, they can kill a second sky of the God Realm warrior. It is unknown where this amazing power comes from, but even Yang Tian Emperor also has to be wary of it. For now, only Chao Qiudao, Yang Yitian, and Yang Tian Emperor have that kind of lethal power. This is also the reason why the Martial Spirit Palace, the Chao family, and the Yang family are top 3 forces in the Endless Sea. Tang Yuannan exclaimed. ChiYan shivered while his face slightly changed. "Don't be agitated. The Endless Sea is much more complicated than what you have imagined. Qingming, the Queen of Sky, and the King of Earth might not be your opponents, but if you make a mess in the Tuda Sea, I don't think Chao family will leave you in peace." Tang Yuannan straightforwardly said, "In Tuda Sea, Yin Yang Wonderland, Corpse's God Sect, and Uncultivated Barbarian Sect all have a close relationship with Chao family. It can be said that Chao Qiudao is the true master in Hengluo Sea. If you take actions with the Yin Yang Wonderland and Corpse's God Sect in Tuda Sea, Chao family will certainly not sit idly." ChiYan frowned and then nodded, spoke up after a long while. "I know. I can temporarily ignore everything in the Endless Sea. Wait until the Endless Sea and the Demon Dwellers engage in a fight. Let's see if Chao Qiudao is lucky enough to survive in the hands of the Demon Kings and the Dark Kings." Demon Kings? Dark Kings? Tang Yuannan shook his head, revealed a smile and said, "Impossible. The people in the underworld cannot break through the gate of heaven. Traveling through the gate of heaven is under the 3 gods' sect's close watch." After a short pause, Tang Yuannan continued, demon kings are unlikely to do so for sure. The gate of heaven is surely powerful enough to limit the masters at that level. Otherwise, in the past years, the demon kings cannot have used only a white skeleton to present themselves in the endless sea. Their true bodies have been constrained, and thus, they cannot go through the gate of heaven. It seems you haven't been updated about the current situation. ChiYan released a sigh. What situation? Tang Yuan-nan was startled. Since hundreds of years ago, the demon dwellers and the dark dwellers have joined their forces. During that time, the fourth demon area and the sevenfold underworld certainly opened up a path that interconnected the two places. Hence, after people of the sevenfold underworld could enter the demon area, these two horrifying races have together taken tens of millions of corpses and souls to condense into the corpse-soul bridge that can connect to any worlds. Afterward, they have used the spirit powers of tens of millions of people to repair the instability of the space nodes, so that the true bodies of the demon kings and dark kings can appear in the endless sea. ChiYan coldly explained. Tang Yuan-nan's body was shaking violently while his face was wearing an unbelievable look. He looked at ChiYan and asked, "Where did you get this information?" "From my heaven flame." ChiYan knitted his eyebrows and replied, "It knows some ancient secrets. According to what it has said, the sevenfold underworld and the demon dwellers have been building the corpse-soul bridge together. Perhaps that bridge is about to be completed. Even though the demon dwellers have been invading the Kiara Sea, they haven't dealt with you guys right away. It may be because they are carrying on the slaughter in the Kiara Sea, using the spirit powers of tens of millions of people to continue condensing into the corpse-soul bridge." After a short pause, ChiYan released a sigh and continued, "I am afraid that people are currently in misery in the Kiara Sea, and all islands there have probably turned into the dead ones. The tragic situation of the Kiara Sea will spread out to the Hengluo Sea very soon." Tang Yuan-nan's face turned a little pale. "Moreover, as far as I have observed, none of you have realized the severity of the situation, as everyone has their own plans and conspiracies. Honestly speaking, I don't think you guys are as strong as the demon dwellers. Therefore, I temporarily want to step aside to watch how the situation progresses." ChiYan revealed a relentless smile, then avoided Tang Yuan-nan and continued going down the mountain. The three people of Tianma's group quickly followed him. Tang Yuan-nan was in a daze while his pupils flashed up. It seemed he was considering something. After a while, he suddenly disappeared and then reappeared in the previous area where Qingming and other people were gathering. He looked at them and said, "Go to the mountain peak. I have something important to tell you guys. This matter is related to the life and death of the entire endless sea." Those people were surprised in fear. They were about to ask for more, but then realized that Tang Yuannan had already disappeared. Qingming, Queen of Sky, King of Earth, Chao Zhilan, and Mangu exchanged looks, didn't know why Tang Yuannan was frightened that much. Although they were a little bit astonished, they still hurriedly walked to the mountain peak. "Young Master Yin, why are you?" At the foot of the mountain, Li Fu strangely looked at ChiYan. "Have the hierarchy sent you back here?" The crowd was clamorous instantly. Many of them felt exultant within their heart, thinking that ChiYan had been expelled by the Three Gods sect because the three people of Tianma's group had gone up the mountain, which had violated the rules of the Three Gods sect. Gu Jinglong was delighted quietly. Her small mouth curled up, revealing a faint smile while her mood suddenly became much better. However, a trace of surprise and peculiarity flashed over in Chu Yanqing's eyes. It seemed she didn't expect ChiYan to go down the mountain that sudden, and thus, she quietly speculated about what had happened up there. ChiYan didn't look at those people, remained his indifferent countenance, and followed the same path to go back to his accommodation. "Ah, look, Zhongli Dun." "What? Zhongli Dun is here? The people of the martial holy palace have finally come?" The crowd was now buzzing with boisterous discussions. Everyone raised their heads, looking up to the sky, and saw a green scaly dragon. This green scaly dragon was about 50 meters long, covered with splendid green scales. Its head was huge, and its eyes shot out a cold light. Someone whose appearance wasn't quite clear was sitting on its neck. Under scrutinizing looks of everyone, The green, scaly dragon's body constantly twisted while a beam of astonishment gleamed in its eyes. This green, scaly dragon seemed to be avoiding someone's pursuit. An ear-piercing screech reverberated from that green, scaly dragon. The body of that level 7 beast slightly shook as it wanted to enter the Sun Island anxiously. ChiYan was startled with his eccentric visage, looking toward the sky, and seemed to have realized some strange aura. Chapter 330, Devil Clouds Engulfing the Sky. Chapter 330, Devil Clouds Engulfing the Sky. The 7th level beast green scaly dragon was struggling around, as it was continually roaring outside the Sun Island and rushing into the Sun Island anxiously. There was a figure sitting on the green scaly dragon, who was also shouting and screaming, as though to urge the people of the Sun Island to remove the formation technique. There was a strange formation technique surrounded the Sun Island. The outsiders would have no way to enter the island without the three god sect's permission. Even if he was Zhongli Dun of the Martial Spirit Palace, he could not violate this rule. The man could only fly around outside of the island. Seeing the current situation of Zhongli Dun and Greenscale Dragon, the people on the Sun Island were terrified. Even the group of Chao Zhilan, Qingming, and other people on the Sacred Light Mountain were also startled. They all looked up to the sky, didn't know what the green scale dragon was avoiding. An ear-piercing screech bringing along a ferocious aura reverberated from very far away. As soon as the sound had echoed, the sea around the island boiled up instantly, creating a lot of huge waves. That sound could tear eardrums and crush fragile people's souls. Li Fu's face changed as he seemed to have figured out something. He then suddenly leaped up to the sky. Li Fu was one of those receptionists who welcomed guests to the island. At this moment, he hurriedly flew to the green scaly dragon and split the formation technique open quickly. Having been awaited for a chance to enter, the green scaly dragon immediately glided through as soon as it saw the crack appear. The 7th level green scaly dragon turned into a green current of light, disappearing into the sky. 15 minutes later, the green scaly dragon reappeared in the sky of the Sun Island. The rider seemed to be standing on its back, slightly patting its body. The green scaly dragon roared and dashed toward the Sacred Light Mountain with the fastest speed, going straight up to the mountain peak. Although the Sacred Light Mountain was surrounded with another formation technique, the green scaly dragon was still moving freely as if this area didn't have any obstacles. The first rank in the power ranking list, Zhongli Dun, was in an extreme urgency, as he was ignoring the rules of the three god sect. He dashed straight to the mountain peak and kept screaming, seemingly wanting to tell Tang Yuannan something. The group of Tang Yuannan and others, who were still on the mountain peak, were extremely frightened after having heard Zhongli Dun's explanation. The crowd at the foot of the Sacred Light Mountain didn't know what was happening. Some of them were looking up to the sky. Some were looking toward Zhongli Dun, while the others cast their eyes toward the Sacred Light Mountain's peak. But they all had a vague feeling of insecurities. Another loud, earth-shaking noise came up from afar, followed by plenty of other noises near the island. Huge waves surged, massively lapping on the coast as if they wanted to destroy everything. ChiYan and the three people of Itiema's group, who were on the way back to their manor, suddenly halted their steps as they also realized that something was wrong. In particular, after ChiYan had heard the ear-splitting sound, his eyes were instantly flooded with suspicions. "Master, what happened?" Itianimo noticed ChiYan's change, couldn't help but gently ask after being a little hesitant, "Did you realize something?" ChiYan's face looked peculiar while he nodded slightly. "I don't know why I have recognized a familiar aura in that scream." Itianimo was dazedly astonished, unknowingly looked up to the sky. At this time, the sun had already mounted high in the sky. Sunlight was shining over the entire island, and the Sacred Light Mountain looked as if it was gold-plated. All of the warriors on the island were immersed in the glowing yellow sunlight. ChiYan was not an exception. However, the difference between him and others was that while drowning in the sunlight, he could feel the heart of the star martial spirit producing a suction force, gathering plenty of sunlight and absorbing them into his heart. His tender beating heart transmitted a warm flow of air which was not too strong and was quickly getting hotter. A trace of surprise glimmered on ChiYan's face. He could feel his heartbeat as well as the light penetrating into his heart. He had decided to wait until the summit on the mountain peak was over. He would then find Tang Yuan to ask more about this star martial spirit's mystery and why it was that magical. While he was still musing deeply, he suddenly detected the suction force of the star martial spirit stopped unknowingly. ChiYan couldn't help but look up to the sky with suspicions, wanted to know what was happening. Frightening screams resounded from everywhere. Many people looked at the sky terrifyingly as their eyes kept changing non-stop. Watching the sky, ChiYan felt aghast inside his heart. It was unknown from where a group of inky black clouds was drifting over and quickly covering the entire sky of the Sun Island. After that, countless clusters of pitch-black clouds also overwhelmed the sky hastily, shrouding the sunlight. The sacred light mountain, which had formerly been bathing in the light, now became gloomy and darkened. This anomalous change didn't have any warning signs or indications. Until people realized something wrong, the sun had already disappeared, leaving only clusters of black clouds in the sky. The clear sky darkened instantly. Daytime became nighttime in just a blink. In the darkness, horrifying roars sometimes resounded from the surrounding of the island, giving people a hair-raising feeling as if numerous creatures were gathering and besieging this island. Many warriors on the island felt terrified at heart, shouting out loud in fear, wanting to go up the mountain urgently. Masters of different forces were gathering on the sacred light mountain's peak, and thus, it should be the safest place in case the Sun Island had a major change. Without the golden invitation cards, no one is allowed to mount the sacred light mountain. It was unknown since when Li Fu had stood at the entrance, shouting, "Everyone should return to your accommodations. We will have the answer for the anomaly in the sky soon. Everyone should calm down." However, the crowd didn't seem to care about it anymore. With the great panic in everyone's hearts, they ignored Li Fu and rushed to the top of the mountain crazily. Li Fu and some warriors of the Three Gods sect screamed out loud for a while, but got no others' attention. Thus, they wanted to take actions but then realized they had been submerged in the crowd, so they could only use the Yin Stone to ask for Tang Yuan's instruction. ChiYan knitted his eyebrows as a vague feeling came up within his heart. He looked up to the sky coldly, contemplated for a while, and then made a quick decision: return with the fastest speed. Etianimo didn't say a word, just reached out to grab ChiYan's arm and leaped up. Yimeng and Kaba were also aware of the strange situation and thus quickly returned to the manor. Xia Shenchuan and Xia Xinyan were in the manor. As they had also realized the unusual changes in the sky, Xia Shenchuan had used the Yin Stone to communicate with other people of Xia family, reassuring them. With huge doubts, Xia Shenchuan and Xia Xinyan went to the outer room, looking toward the sky. Yi Zhangfeng and Lin Yiqi were also astonished, blankly watching the changes in the sky. What happened? Xia Shenchuan walked over, stole a glance at Yi Zhangfeng, and asked calmly. "We don't know yet." Yi Zhangfeng shook his head with a face that had never been this serious before. "Many beasts are gathering here. Besides, the sky is overwhelmed with devil clouds. Perhaps the demon dwellers of the demon area are already here. Currently, the Sun Island is blockaded. We don't know how many beasts and demon dwellers there are. It is truly unbelievable." Along with their fast heartbeats, deafening and prolonged sounds continued to reverberate outside the Sun Island. While Xia Shenchuan was in shock, Etianimo, together with ChiYan, suddenly came back. Yi Zhangfeng was startled. "Didn't you go to the summit? Why do you come back so soon? Did you have news from the mountain?" ChiYan shook his head, waiting for Etianimo to put him down, and then replied with his knitted eyebrows, "No one knows what is happening for now. From the current circumstance, perhaps someone wants to devastate the Sun Island. Even though that person knows that many warriors are gathering for the summit on the Sacred Light Mountain this time, he still dares to besiege the island. It means he has prepared well before coming here. Perhaps he truly has the ability to slaughter all the God Realm warriors here." Yi Zhangfeng nodded in agreement with ChiYan. "It is highly possible. You guys should not separate. Wait and see the change. Once the situation gets worse, we will immediately withdraw from the island." ChiYan calmly said after having considered for a while. Xia Shunchuan and Xia Xinyan quietly nodded and released a sigh. The three people of Etianimo were the God Realm warriors. Thus, having them by their side, everyone else felt a little bit less worried. If something bad happens, their opportunity to survive was still higher than others. As soon as that thought had come across in their mind, anomalous change happened in the sky. ChiYan suddenly sat down, gritted his teeth quietly, and placed his right hand on the ground while his eyes kept changing. Everyone couldn't help but look at him attentively. No one knows why ChiYan's right arm was now covered with green silk fibers. With a closer look, those fine silk fibers were attaching onto his flesh and slowly moving as well. With the scrutinizing gaze at his arm, everyone imagined that his right arm was like being wrapped with plenty of worms, which scared them out of their wits. Chapter 331. Using an ox-cleaver to carve a chicken. Chapter 331. Using an ox-cleaver to carve a chicken. ChiYan's face looked serious and solemn, while his soul consciousness was gathering at his right arm. He attentively observed the transformation of his arm. Tens of thousands of green silk threads were slowly squirming on his arm as if they wanted to destroy his muscle fibers and smash down his arm into pieces. Inside each of the green silk fibers, devilish energy was like a small insect eroding ChiYan's body, eating his flesh and blood, turning his arm into sparkling white bones. These forces came from the hierarchy of the corpse's god sect Qingming. At the flank of the sacred light mountain, ChiYan had taken advantage of the three kinds of heaven flames, which had been bound with the souls of Tianma's group, as well as the state where his profound qi had been drained, to make Qingming drop his vigilance and ambushed him. Because Qingming's soul had been under the control of Tianma's group, thus he had lost the ability to control his body, and ChiYan almost had a chance to injure Qingming severely. However, the Queen of Sky and the King of Earth had shown up and interfered right on time that helped Qingming avoid the danger and injured ChiYan seriously at the same time. If he hadn't had a quick reaction, Qingming could have had obliterated him. Among the God Realm warriors, Qingming was probably the weakest one. Regardless of the soul cultivation, martial techniques, or mighty profound qi, he was at the lowest rank. The reason was that most of his spiritual power came from the corpses. He had wasted many years in interlinking with the king corpse and cultivating the corpse-controlling technique. Therefore, even though he had reached the god realm, his strength was the least mighty. Without the king corpse, Qingming's personal strength was far inferior to those of other god realm warriors. However, even so, the gap between him and ChiYan was huge, and that ChiYan still was not his match. If the three people of Tianma's group hadn't used their souls to suppress Qingming, as well as without the Heaven Flame's intimidation, Qingming could have had killed ChiYan. With just one flow of Qingming's force remaining in his body, ChiYan was already in inexplicable pain. Watching the peculiar silky fibers started spreading and infiltrating into his whole arm, gnawing his flesh and blood, ChiYan shuddered, wanted to find some help to remove them. He was about to call for the ice-cold flame, but realized that the anomaly suddenly occurred on his right arm. A stream of beautiful red light burst out from his right arm. In a blink, all the blood cells in his arm were as if they are reviving and trembling. After that, ChiYan's body was violently shaken, and along with this tremor, his right arm brought forth a tremendous suction force. It was like each of his muscle fibers suddenly turned into a vortex in the sea, attracting all the energy on his arm, which then became the nourishing sources for his arm. That purple-red light expanded. Under ChiYan's scrutinizing eyes, rippling waves were emerging from that glamorous purple-red light. The green energy instantly disappeared, as it was assimilated and fused by the devilish energy from ChiYan's muscles, becoming a part of his body. The mutation slowly ended. That purple-red light quickly vanished as well. ChiYan's right arm had originally had the skin color, but now it turned into the completely purple-red hue. Suddenly, that moderate purple-red light gently spread out. With a quick glance, ChiYan's right arm looked like a purple-red jade exuding many glistening beams of light. He balled his hand into a fist. A strange flow of forces flowed out violently and gathered in the middle of his palm in just a blink. ChiYan was wearing determination on his face, grinned, and launched a fist all of a sudden. A purple-red circle of light burst out sharply. As soon as the light had been discharged, strange fluttering sounds came up in the air. The light diffused and soon covered the entire 5-story stone house. The booming sounds reverberated. Under everyone's scrutinizing look, the dozens of meters-high stone house collapsed, and rubble scattered everywhere. The mightiness of this purple-red light was unabated. Its irresistible power continued sweeping across here and there like a hurricane after having destroyed the stone house. The extra power then devastated another 2-story stone house and eventually turned into plenty purple-red dots of light, disappearing into the void. Everyone's faces were aghast, looking at him blankly. ChiYan forced a smile, tried his best to lift his right arm, then said, "The power is not bad." Everyone nodded dazedly, feeling frightened at heart. That is not just not bad? The powerful fist had discharged that terrifying light and destroyed the whole dozens of meters-high stone houses. What kind of ordinary warriors could have this strength? Without the profound chi and only relying on the strange forces in the arm, the power from his right arm had still created a tremendous intimidation, which was not inferior to the previous full-power strike. So, although ChiYan would probably never be able to gather the profound chi again, he would not be weaker than any other people. A thought suddenly flashed across ChiYan's mind. Pour your energy into my body. Let's see how much my body can bear. And I also want to check if I can use it as the profound chi or not. ChiYan sent out a message to the ice-cold flame. Understood. The ice-cold flame instantly responded. After 15 minutes, a stream of cold water from the blood vein on his broken left hand massively rolled forward. The ice-cold flame's cold water flow, which was like the surging waves bursting the dike, crazily rushed into his body. His left arm was quickly frozen, and the bone-chilling coldness was spreading out quietly. Under everyone's scrutinizing looks, ChiYan sneered once again, suddenly squatted down, and gently pressed his right arm on the ground. The ground was frozen in just a blink. Many splendid, transparent circles of power expanded from his left arm. With his left arm as the center, a pellucid flow of mist penetrated into the earth and quickly spread out with amazing speed. Crack, crack, crack. Wherever that flow of mist passed through, the ground instantly turned into extremely thick ice. A 5-meter-wide ice road was being formed and continued extending. After that flow of mist passing through, plants and trees there all turned into beautiful ornaments which were not different than those being displayed in the Ice Museum. Even the 2 ancient trees also became the sparkling, marvelous Christmas trees. The mist continued diffused forward, and another dozens of meters-high stone house became its next target. In a blink, that stone house had been covered with ice. Everyone rolled their eyes and dropped their jaws. ChiYan was crouching on the ground while many sparkling lights were moving as fast as electricity in his left hand. He retrieved his left arm while his right arm quickly launched a punch. With his feet as the center, the ice world suddenly broke down into crumbles. The ground cracked open, plants and trees immediately turned into ice fragments scattering in the sky. The 2 ancient trees exploded, and the house was also crushed into numerous pieces of ice. In other words, the fact that ChiYan had frozen everything was not different than arranging a trap to destroy opponents. Bone-chilling air spread out everywhere from the place that he was standing. Many of the female guards in the manor couldn't bear it. Although they had moved hundreds of meters away, they still felt freezing. If it continued like this, they would be soon frozen to death in a few blinks. Itienma's group were in a daze and then quickly took actions to push back the coldness, but it wasn't very effective. ChiYan retracted his right arm, suddenly had some thought, and thus he communicated with the ice-cold flame simultaneously. He still lacked the experiences in using the heaven flames. He could easily release them but encountered many difficulties in controlling and retrieving them. At this moment, he had no way to carry on any experiments, as he could only rely on the ice-cold flame. Out of everyone's expectation, Yi Zhangfeng suddenly shouted, "Resist!" Countless flames constantly appeared from Yi Zhangfeng's body, flew around in the sky with the speed that naked eyes could hardly see, and then covered the entire range of 300 meters, preventing the coldness of the ice-cold flame from spreading out. Sizzle, sizzle. The ice-cold flame used its icy power to strike on the red circle of flames in the air. The water vapor came up impetuously, and then the icy power was washed away after a short time. ChiYan gently exhaled a sigh of relief, cried out anxiously, and stormed outside quickly, dashing toward a girl who was hundreds of meters away. That girl had originally thought that she would have been dead as she was wearing a frightened face and sad eyes. However, she suddenly saw a circle of fire prevented all of that coldness. Even before she could have any reactions, she already saw ChiYan having stood in front of her with a worried face. She suddenly felt the sweetness in her heart. He has put me in his heart. As he had taken the initiative to come here, he should have me in his heart. That girl quietly hoped, revealed a satisfied smile on her face, as if she would still have been pleased if ChiYan had accidentally killed her. Linda, why are you here? ChiYan shook her body, showing a worried face, and asked gently, are you okay? The long-braided girl revealed a smile while her eyes were full of joy. She replied, I am a disciple of the three-god sect. As too many guests have come to the Sun Island, I have been arranged to come here to help serve the guests. Because I know you stay here, so I have asked to come here. The more she talked, the blusher her face became, together with a little embarrassment. ChiYan felt touched. He was about to say something, but right at this moment, plenty explosive sounds resounded from the sky. ChiYan subconsciously looked up to the sky, and his face changed dramatically. A huge bone ship suddenly emerged from the inky black clouds in the sky. The bone ship was snow-white, totally made of human bones. That ship was gliding extremely fast in the clouds, strongly striking on the sunlight from the sky. Numerous figures were moving back and forth on that 1,000-meter-long ship. Plenty demon dwellers with ferocious appearances, ruthless eyes, and bloodthirsty faces were excitedly looking down to the Sun Island below. Chapter 332, ChiYan. Chapter 332, ChiYan. Divine Craft Demon God. Yi Zhangfeng was looking at the huge bone ship in the sky, which was slowly emerging from the dark. Suddenly he cried out in fear with an aghast face and disbelieving look. In the inky black clouds, a huge, dazzling, eye-catching bone ship was approaching, bringing along the earth-shaking, destructive aura which froze ChiYan's heart and gave him a powerless feeling. When Yi Zhangfeng screamed out, a strange light glinted in his eyes. He hesitated a little bit before quickly turning to Lin Yaqi and said, Sister, we should leave immediately. Lin Yaqi's countenance looked unprecedentedly heavy. She nodded slowly and uttered softly, Yeah? What is the Divine Craft Demon God? ChiYan couldn't help but ask while his face was changing dramatically. After having looked at the anomaly in the sky, he walked over Linda's side and unhesitatingly dragged her to where everyone else was gathering. When Linda came to the crowd, she was a little shy and frightened looking at ChiYan. She then bowed her head, didn't dare to talk. Linda was from the Kale clan on the Snow Dragon Island. This small clan was not a prominent force in the Endless Sea, just an outer force of the Three Gods sect, and could not compare with the Xia family. In addition to the huge gap between their origins, ChiYan was too beautiful and noble. She also possessed a profound cultivation base, as well as the reincarnation martial spirit. With all those reasons, Linda had a feeling of inferiority when facing ChiYan. She stood next to ChiYan disconcertedly, didn't even dare to glance at ChiYan. ChiYan was a little doubtful, didn't know how ChiYan had known Linda. However, given the current strange situation, she didn't ask about this but looked at Yi Zhangfeng with an astonished face, waiting for him to explain something related to the Divine Craft Demon God. The Divine Craft Demon God is the flying palace of the Demon King ChiYan. It has existed for a long time. There were some other demon kings before ChiYan who used to own this flying palace. Some people have said that this Divine Craft Demon God has been made of bones, flesh, blood, and souls of the 9th-level beasts in the demon area. It is not only huge, but also terribly powerful. Yi Zhangfeng said with a serious face. The divine craft demon god is the cultivation place of Demon King ChiYan. If the divine craft demon god appears in the endless sea, it means that Demon King ChiYan should also be inside that ship. ChiYan is at the third sky of the god realm, and he is only half step away to reach the true god realm. As such powerful person shows up here, the people on the Sun Island should probably seek for blessings. Impossible. Shurian's face changed tragically. He spoke out loud. With that level, how can Demon King ChiYan enter the endless sea with his true body? Before the corpse soul bridge is finished, they definitely cannot arrive here with their true bodies. I don't know either. Yi Zhangfeng shook his head. In the legend, wherever the divine craft demon god is, Demon King ChiYan will be there as well. We have to leave immediately. Xia Shunchuan contemplated a little bit and then made a quick decision. No matter if ChiYan is inside that ship or not, even though he knows that many masters are gathering on the Sun Island today, he still wantonly invades. It means these demon dwellers should have some kind of crutch. Otherwise, they wouldn't dare to take risks like this. Everyone nodded instantly. Even Shurian also nodded in agreement with Xia Shunchuan's suggestion. However, at this point of time, the divine craft demon god was piercing layers upon layers of devil clouds, gradually revealing itself and slowly drifting toward the sacred light mountain. The sunlight from the Sun Island appeared again, forming a dome of light to prevent the invasion. The dome of light was like layers upon layers of waves, creating a marvelous flower of light blossoming in the sky. It looked like a big bowl turning upside down, enclosing everyone inside. In this situation, no one dared to break through. Great Sun Holy Light Tianmu. This was a miraculous formation technique which had existed for hundreds of years on the Sun Island. In the legend, the Great Sun Holy Light Tianmu had been broken only 3 times. Even if God Realm warriors kept launching their strikes continually, consuming their powers for several days and nights, they still hardly broke down the Great Sun Holy Light Tianmu. However, the Great Sun Holy Light Tianmu was about to endure the 4th break. The bone ship, like a club-shaped arrow, burst out the black lights. Millions of flows of black lights producing the creak-creak noises started condensing and creating a horrible, semi-round shaped sickle. As soon as the semi-round shaped sickle appeared, the sky and earth seemed to tremble for a moment. This terrifying sickle was pitch black with devilish icy light flashing around. This sickle launched a strike on the Great Sun Holy Light Tianmu violently. Under one blow of the sickle, the Great Sun Holy Light Tianmu, which hadn't been broken for hundreds of years, burst into numerous dots of light, creating billions of fireflies scattering everywhere that looked like snowflakes slowly floating in the sky above the Sun Island. The Great Sun Holy Light Tianmu twisted, revealing a crack where the bone ship was slowly getting through. Great Uncle Jiao. Shurian's body was agitated as he was very horrified. He couldn't help but shout out loud in fear. Xia Xinyan's face was aghast when she was blankly looking at a person flashing up on the bone ship. That person was Jiao Han-yi. That year, when Shurian and Xia Xinyan had just arrived in the Endless Sea, they had been ambushed and captured by a White Bones truth body of Demon King Brazen. It was because Jiao Han-yi had protected the two of them that he had been pulled into the demon area by the White Bones claws. The reason that Yang Tian Emperor had been detained in the heavenly demon wind god formation was that he had also wanted to save Tian Han-yi. Regretfully, Yang Tian Emperor not only hadn't succeeded, but had also been caught in a tight encirclement. Jiao Han-yi, who had an important position in Shurian's heart, now showed up on that devilish divine craft demon god today. How he could be not scared. While he was still in inexplicable surprise, Jiao Han-yi jumped out of the demon ship, while his 2 hands had turned into huge, ferocious claws, using the full power strength to tear the crack on the Great Sun Holy Light Tianmu larger. As soon as Jiao Han-yi appeared, a horrendous flow of demon aura soared while his pupils flashed up with many black beams of light like a mysterious black hole of the universe, which seemed to be able to swallow all the light. The sunlight, which had formerly bloomed out of the Great Sun Holy Light Tianmu, now disappeared in his devilish pupils one by one. In just a short time, his 2 pupils had completely swallowed all the light from the Great Sun Holy Light Tianmu. Sky and earth became dark and gloomy. He is not human. Indeed, he only has a human body, but his soul has been refined for a long time. Yi Zhangfeng raised his head, looking at the person on the ship, then softly whined. That person's body has been quenched, and the soul has been erased. It has become a body for Demon King ChiYan to shelter. Demon King ChiYan cannot truly appear in the endless sea, and thus, he has to borrow this person's body and use the consigned soul. He seemed to have been premeditated. Shiyan's body violently shook. He stared at Jiao Han Yi without blinking. His face became calm, and his eyes turned to be insensitive. After an earth-shaking scream resounded from the divine craft demon god, a humanoid monster with thorns jutted out from the skin and a mouth filled with huge, long fangs ferociously appeared next to Jiao Han Yi. It seemed to use the consciousness to communicate with Jiao Han Yi. That monster with human form rolled its eyes, coldly casting a quick glance at the situation beneath them one more time and kept roaring. Suddenly, many demon beasts appeared from the sea around the Sun Island and started attacking people crazily. ChiYan was bewildered, looking at that monster in the human form as if he had just got hit by a fatal strike. A click resounded in his head, which was like some soul covenant had just been broken. Jiao Han Yi's sparkling black eyes was coldly looking down toward ChiYan with a sign of sarcasm. Human imp. A mighty flow of consciousness broke through everything, striking toward ChiYan's head. This flow of consciousness was so strong that it made his soul defense explode and also harmed other people surrounding at the same time. Master, be careful. Tianimo, Yimeng, and Kaba were frightened, hurriedly used their souls to form a triple soul formations above ChiYan's head. Sizzle, sizzle, sizzle. Strange noises resounded from above ChiYan's head. The bodies of the three people of Tianma's group were violently trembling as they were put forth all of their condensed soul powers to prevent the Demon King's evil consciousness from penetrating ChiYan's mind. A mournful scream arose. ChiYan's face changed tragically, couldn't help but looked toward Linda. 7 holes on Linda's face were bleeding. Her beautiful eyes were sad and colorless. Blood was trickling from the corners of her eyes. She stood there motionlessly as her soul had been destroyed. Xia Shanchuan held his head, screamed out in misery, moved forward to the place of Xia Xinyan, Yi Zhangfeng, Lin Yiqi desperately. His facial 7 holes bled whenever he took one step forward while his soul was partly crushed. Before he could reach Xia Xinyan's place, his body fell onto the ground flabbily. His living aura slowly disappeared. It was unknown when Lin Yiqi had put on her purple headscarf, which was emitting strange circles of light, forming an umbrella-like cover protecting her and Yi Zhangfeng. Because Xia Xinyan was standing together with them, she had avoided the fatal danger. At this moment, Xia Xinyan's beautiful eyes were full of tears. She forcefully struggled, attempting to rush outside the protection range of the umbrella cover to drag Xia Shenchuan inside it. But Yi Zhangfeng and Lin Yiqi had prevented her from getting out of the purple scarf's coverage. Yi Zhangfeng knew that if she left the protection range of the scarf, her soul would be smashed. The souls of more than 100 guards of the 3 gods sect in the manor had been destroyed in just a short time. Even though they still maintained their positions, their lives had been taken. A powerful flow of qi flew out from Linda's and Xia Shenchuan's bodies and then poured into ChiYan's meridians. No, don't stop me. ChiYan cried out unconsciously, trying to tear down the clothes on his body to prevent Linda's qi from infiltrating into his body. However, there were 720 acupuncture points on his body. How could he cover them all with just 2 hands? In just a short time, Linda's qi had entered his body wholly. As Xia Shanchuan had the Sky Realm cultivation base, his qi moved much more slowly, but it couldn't delay much of the time. Swoosh swoosh. When Jiao Han Yi appeared in the Sun Island sky, the divine craft demon god also slowly pierced through layers upon layers of obstacles, moving toward the sacred light mountain, and then finally stopped amid the clouds above the mountain. I am Demon King ChiYan. This fertile land is no longer yours. From now on, the endless sea belongs to us, the demon dwellers. You are just our captive livestock. On the sacred light mountain peak, The emotionless voice of Jiao Han reverberated to every corner of the Sun Island. As soon as this voice ceased, Demon King ChiYan stomped on the spot in the void and slowly moved toward ChiYan's place, then said, "The demonic Sound Clan is one of the big 4 clans of the Dark Dwellers. Your 3 great Dark Kings will be here in a few days. As the demonic Sound Clan is one of Dark Dwellers' branches, you are entitled to use this fertile land. As long as you nod your heads, this vast sea will belong to you." While he was talking, numerous ferocious demon dwellers stormed out from the bone ship. A horrendous aura blanketed the sacred light mountain, started attacking God Realm warriors and slaughtering those with lower cultivation base. "This is not our homeland." Etianimo raised his head. Looking at Demon King ChiYan, who was approaching, then said, "We want to go back to our ancestral land. I don't want to be involved in the dispute here. We will depart today." 3 days ago, the Wings race on the Snow Dragon Island has officially returned to the 8 demon tribes. Thousands of pagans of the demonic Sound Clan and Wings race also get along well with us on the island. Even Dishan and Yu have submitted, and you 3 still want to repel? Demon King ChiYan calmly said, "I really like the 3 little boys Bai, Yaji, and Katu. Avi Dark King has said that if you 3 submit, he will treat your descendants well in the future. What do you think?" Etianimo, Yimeng, and Kaba trembled violently. It looked like all of their powers had been drained. His face was getting more ashen. Bai, Yaji, and Katuo were their fatal point. Besides that, the entire demonic Sound Clan and Wings race have been in restraint. What else should they do? ChiYan now looked like a wild beast, raising his head, resentfully staring at Demon King ChiYan, breathing heavily. Linda had died. Jiao Hanyi had been refined to dead. The Snow Dragon Island had fallen into the opponent's hands. This world suddenly turned upside down in a short moment. Demon King ChiYan had also destroyed his good future. Chapter 333, A Big Defeat. Chapter 333, A Big Defeat. "Master, we are sorry." The 3 people of Etianmo's group kneeled down, bowing their heads in front of ChiYan with full of grief. ChiYan's face was gloomy. He nodded and said insensitively, "I understand." The 3 of them bowed their heads, didn't dare to look at ChiYan. Their eyes were downcast with a complicated look. "Master," Demon King ChiYan sneered ruthlessly as his body suddenly appeared above the manor. The face, which had originally belonged to Jiao Hanyi, was now overwhelmed with treacherousness. "Is this lowly human worthy of humbling yourselves to call him master? Have you lost your self-esteem because living in the abandoned land for too long?" Etienma's shoulders suddenly trembled while his eyes were full of resentment, but he didn't dare to have any reactions. "You can call Abi Death King, Yellow Spring Death King, the Dark Sky Death King, master. This human brat is not worthy. I will help you eradicate him." ChiYan was stomping forward in the air, producing the cold, indifferent sound. As soon as he launched a blow, a huge palm suddenly appeared amid the void, looked like a mountain slowly pressing down, covering the whole manor. "Don't!" The 3 people of Etienma's group couldn't help but cry out loud, wanted to stop the oppression from this huge palm. "Go!" Yi Zhangfeng suddenly shouted. Numerous gold lights shot out from his body. In the middle of the glowing gold light, plenty gold leaves flew out from his sleeves, gathered and formed a gold crystal chunk above his head. This crystal chunk then shot out countless sparkling lights, covering the 3 of them and ChiYan. ChiYan was about to say something, but immediately felt a burst of dizziness as the pain was spreading all over his body. Even his sea of consciousness also seemed to become gold. Space was twisted strangely. A flow of power shortly burst out, breaking through layers of constraints. As soon as the glowing gold light flashed up, the 4 people of ChiYan, Yi Zhangfeng, Lin Yiqi, and Xia Xinyan miraculously disappeared out of the manor without leaving any trace. Teleportation treasure. A strange beam of light flared up in Demon King ChiYan's eyes. A few seconds later, the black light in his eyes brightened. His eyes seemed to turn into a miraculous projection which started to show the scene within the range of 1,000 miles around the Sun Island. With ChiYan as the center, A significant flow of soul consciousness quickly spread out at the same time. Just in a few seconds, the huge soul consciousness of Demon King ChiYan had covered the radius of 1,000 miles and was still expanding. In ChiYan's eyes, the scenes of the islands kept changing. Just standing here, he could see the scenes from 1,000 miles away, observing every commotion in front of his eyes. Found them. Demon King ChiYan suddenly revealed a silent smile, while his left eyes glinted with a gold beam of light, in which a deserted island appeared. Demon King ChiYan beamed a sneer, stretched his hand out in the air. The void in front of him suddenly rippled like a stone falling into the water, creating many rippling waves. While those ripples were spreading, the void in front of his eyes slowly projected an image of a small island. On that island, 4 people of Yi Zhangfeng's group and ChiYan were still in shock, gasping for breath. Demon King ChiYan's left hand suddenly reached out, touching the image of the island in front of him. On the island, when ChiYan, Yi Zhangfeng, Lin Yiqi, and Xia Xinyan had just stabilized their bodies, they saw many groups of clouds gathering, forming a huge cloud above their heads. A giant hand, which could cover the entire sky, abruptly emerged and snatched the island below. The island was not very big, probably not as big as 1/5 of the Sun Island. However, it was still larger than the Godstone Square where ChiYan had stayed previously. However, the island looked very tiny under that giant hand. ChiYan and his fellows felt that there was no slight chance for them to escape. "Let me handle it this time," Lin Yiqi screamed out loud, jumped up as fast as electricity, grabbed Yi Zhangfeng's sleeve, and forcefully pulled forward. Torrential energy fluctuations spread out from Lin Yiqi's body. Under those waves of energy, Yi Zhangfeng's sleeves glittered with gold lights, and flying gold leaves appeared again above the 4 heads before condensing into a crystal chunk as he continued to use the teleportation treasure. In the middle of the glowing gold light, the 4 people of ChiYan's group disappeared again. Boom, boom, boom. The giant hand jutted out from the groups of clouds, forcefully pressing down. The entire island was razed to the ground. 1,000-meter-high mountains were also flattened by that giant hand. On the Sun Island, the 3 people of Yi Tianma's group frighteningly looked at Demon King ChiYan, also blankly watched the scene which was resized countless times and appeared in the middle of ripples in front of ChiYan. As the 3 of them saw the entire island being raised right after ChiYan's giant hand had pressed down, they felt terrified at heart. The 3 people of Yi Tianma's group knew that the scene projected amid the ripples in front of them was absolutely not an illusion, but it was really happening now. After Demon King ChiYan had flattened the island, he suddenly knitted his eyebrows as the scene in his eyes changed again. His tremendous soul consciousness continued expanding in all directions and had covered the range of more than 1,000 miles already. A long time later, Demon King ChiYan retrieved his soul consciousness. The strange scene in his eyes gradually disappeared. He knitted his brows, contemplated for a while before speaking with a cold voice. "Is that little rascal one of the Yang family?" The 3 people of Yi Tianma's group kept silent, didn't utter a word. "Even if you don't tell me, I can still figure it out," ChiYan coldly snorted and said. As soon as he had finished, he launched a blow in the void, and a silhouette suddenly emerged. It was Li Fu. ChiYan didn't question him either. His eyes, like 2 black holes, coldly looked at Li Fu, and he then opened his mouth, spat out a black ray of light. That black ray instantly hit Li Fu, piercing through his brain like a worm gnawing his sea of consciousness. Not long after that, his facial 7 holes were all bleeding. The vitality of his body was gradually gone. He finally flabbily fell to the ground and died. Swoosh! A wisp of light flew out from Li Fu's brain. ChiYan then quickly opened his mouth to catch and swallow it. His lips slightly curled as his eyes sparked with black dots of light. He had known everything about ChiYan like the back of his hand. "The remnant of the Yang family," ChiYan ridiculed, shook his head, and then said faintly, "Bo Sun will probably take action soon. The Yang family will completely disappear." After having finished his words, ChiYan suddenly turned toward the sacred light mountain and let out a scream. A massive flow of consciousness dashed straight to everyone's brain on the sacred light mountain peak. "Ma Chi done," The little rascal who has almost destroyed your soul is running away to the east. He is now 1,000 far away. If you start now, you still can catch him. On the mountain peak, the horrified body of ChiYan of the Dragon Horn clan suddenly trembled while his eyes were flooded with blunt, murderous craziness. He let go the Queen of Sky and the King of Earth, and then looked toward ChiYan from a distance. "Leave this place to me," ChiYan smiled and said. "As long as Chao Chiodao and Yang Etian don't come here, this entire area will be under our control." That little rascal had returned from the chasm battlefield, bringing some strange secret treasure that can break the seal. If we let him give that secret treasure to Yang Tian Emperor, I'm afraid that there will be a lot of troubles later. You should go now. ChiYan cruelly sneered and instantly turned into a devil beam of light, piercing straight into layers of devil clouds, crazily stormed toward the east. ChiYan turned his head, looking at the three people of Tianma's group, and then coldly said, "You don't need to join this battle. I'll give you guys a few days to pull yourselves together. Wait until this battle ends. I will bring you to meet the three Dark Kings. They have something to tell you." After having finished his words, ChiYan didn't say anything further, walking step by step toward the sacred light mountain peak. His footsteps were slow, but every of his steps crossed layers of space. Thus, after only 5 steps, he was already at the mountain peak. After ChiYan had appeared on the sacred light mountain peak, he casually swung his 2 fists in the air. After one punch had been released, countless lightning flashed up in the sky. Millions of long, black lightning shot out from the endless darkness. In the middle of the black lightning, 10 big black lightning pythons, more than 1,000 meters long, slowly emerged. Each of the big black lightning pythons contained the earth-shaking waves of energy. As soon as those 10 big black lightning pythons appeared, they immediately wrapped around the sacred light mountain of the Three Gods sect. The majestic formation technique outside the sacred light mountain kept cracking. The 10,000-meter-high mountain, which was entangled by 10 big black lightning pythons, started shaking and crumbling. Numerous small, black streaks of lightning were flying around the mountain, splitting into millions of tiny pythons eroded everything on the mountain, except for rocks and stones. Only after a few seconds, tens of thousands of ancient trees, countless plants and flowers, insects, and beasts on the mountain had completely been eaten by those little pythons. The lush and verdant sacred light mountain now turned into a deserted mountain without vitality. A few disciples of the Three Gods sect on the mountain flank had failed to survive as well. Those little pythons had gnawed them clean without leaving even one single bone. 10 big pythons continued entangling the sacred light mountain, making horrifying howls and putting their efforts together to crush down the mountain. Under the pulls and twists of those pythons, the sacred light mountain was finally uprooted, flew out of the earth, then collapsed into the sea. High-class warriors, who came for the summit on the mountain peak, were all terrified witnessing the collapse of the mountain. They also felt freezing at heart seeing ChiYan clasping his hands behind his back, standing in the air. The giant demon king ship was still hovering silently in the air as before. The monster in human form with jagged thorns covering all over its body faced up the sky, growling and roaring as if it was calling for something. Numerous huge demon beasts suddenly appeared from the sky and the sea, crazily stormed toward the Sun Island like a flock of locusts, wiped out all the creatures on the island, devoured and tore panic warriors apart, swallowing even their bones. These demon beasts were chewing the bones of the human warriors and continued searching for other targets everywhere at the same time. The massive panic spread over the entire Sun Island. Regardless of whether the disciples of the Three Gods sect or other warriors who came for the summit, they were all scared to death. In this crazy invasion of the demon dwellers, a lot of people couldn't perform even 1/3 of their strength. Under the besiege and slaughter of the demon beast, those warriors have been ravened into pieces. On the Sun Island, blood flowed into rivers, corpses scattered everywhere. The island became a hell on earth. At this time, many exotic dazzling balls of light constantly exploded. Those who had teleportation treasure desperately used them to escape from this place without caring if their body would be broken or not. On the sacred light mountain, Chao Jilan's face was ashen. She dragged Mangu along and disappeared into the silver light in the sky. At the foot of the mountain, Gu Linglong was urging the god sword which was blooming out blazing lights, but she then found a ferocious beast plunging down from the sky. Riding that demon beast, a third sky of the Nirvana realm demon dweller was sneering cruelly, holding a black lance. He was scratching the void, dashing toward her. Swoosh! After the black lance stabbed through Gu Linglong's exquisite body, that demon beast immediately rushed over. Its iron-like claws grasped Gu Linglong's head. Puff! Gu Linglong's head burst. Blood and brains spurted out together. In that blood splash, the light covering Gu Linglong's entire body gradually disappeared, and she spat a mouthful blood. In the twisted space, her body then disappeared mysteriously. And it was going on like that on the Sun Island. The vast majority of the warriors who didn't have the teleportation treasure nor other secret treasures could only madly rushed outside the island with the hope that they could jump into the sea to escape. Unfortunately, these warriors had become the demon beast's food before they could jump into the water. On the flank of the sacred light mountain, sparkling, blinding balls of light continually appeared. In the middle of those lights, Tang Yuannan disappeared without a trace, as well as Qing Ming, the Queen of Sky, the King of Earth, Gu Shao, and Yu Qin. Total 6 God Realm warriors, who had come here for the summit, had to run away when facing the intimidation of Demon King ChiYan, Demon Master ChiYan, Demon Emperor Cinda, Demon Master Erig, and several others demon dwellers who had just entered the God Realm. With the God Realm warriors' escape, it meant the fight on the Sun Island had come to an end. Other people, who were still on the Sun Island, didn't have any secret treasures or secret transport technique, and thus they had no way to escape nor any hope to survive. It was unknown when ChiYan had been standing again on the prow of the Demon King's ship, looking down at the island. His eyes were like 2 black holes displaying no emotions. The 2 demon masters, Cinda and Erig, who were under the command of ChiYan, had also flown up together to the Demon King's ship after the sacred light mountain had collapsed. These 2 demon masters belonged to the sharp-tail tribe, dragging a 5-meter-long tail behind. That tail was full of sharp thorns like fierce fangs, giving people an undefeatable feeling. 6 God Realm warriors have finally fled out of the island. Cinda walked over and talked to ChiYan with a hoarse voice. "Don't bother about them." ChiYan coldly looked at the island and said, "They will definitely go to find Chao Qiudao and Yang Yitian. Regather their strength for the next fight. Chao Qiudao and Yang Yitian will show up on the next time. That is when we have the real battle." Cinda and Erig slightly bent down and nodded, indicating that they had understood. "Clear all the human beings in this sea. Use their corpses to build the Corpse Soul Bridge. Millions of human corpses here are enough to finish the Corpse Soul Bridge. At that time, Bosun's and my real bodies can really come to the endless sea. Then, even Chao Qiudao and Yang Yitian cannot stop us." ChiYan looked down at the miserable creatures beneath, said ruthlessly. Chapter 334. Separating in Life, Parting in Death. Chapter 334. Separating in Life, Parting in Death. The Kiara Sea, on a deserted island. With the help of Yi Zhangfeng's teleportation treasure, the 4 people, Yi Zhangfeng, Lin Yiqi, Shiyan, and Xia Xinyan, had luckily escaped the devastating attack of Demon King ChiYan. There was no one on this desolated island. Other adjacent islands were also barren, didn't have any plants or grass, except for gray rocks. Because of having used the teleport secret treasure, Yi Zhangfeng and Lin Yiqi had consumed a large amount of profound qi, and thus their faces now were a little pale. After they had arrived on this island, they still couldn't calm themselves. Their eyes were full of shock and fear. One palm of Demon King ChiYan had pierced through spaces, covered the entire sky and earth, and instantly raised the island where the 4 of them had stopped earlier. That horrifying power had severely shocked all of them, made them understand more about the strength of this 3rd sky of the Spirit Realm Master from the demon area. One palm of a 3rd sky of the Spirit Realm Warrior had crossed tens of thousands of miles, while its earth-shaking, devastating power didn't diminish, not even just a little bit. An island, as big as the god's stone square, had easily been flattened, which was indescribably formidable. ChiYan's strength was beyond ChiYan's understanding. This was the first time he knew that a god realm warrior could be that terrifying. Little Bai, what should we do now? Lin Yiqi wore a distressed look on her face, dusted off her round bum, gritted her teeth, and said helplessly, "This sea is no longer peaceful." Unexpectedly, that demon king still could find us even though we have run for 1,000 miles away. I don't know if that guy can find us here. Go to the east. Leave this sea as soon as possible. Yi Zhangfeng stood up, cautiously looked up to the sky and said, "We cannot continue to teleport again. Otherwise, we will not be able to stand it anymore and may suffer from the backfire. We can only use the flying secret treasure to move." Ling Yiqi nodded. ChiYan and Xia blankly sat on a rock, looking up at the sky with their gloomy, dazed eyes. Xiaoxinyan's grandfather had died, ChiYan had lost Linda, and the three people of Tianma's group had been forced to yield under the pressure of the future of their children and their races. Even the Snow Dragon Island had become the demon dwellers' paradise. The patriarch of the Wings race, Dishan and Yuro, had also become their partners. This misfortune dispirited and depressed ChiYan a lot, even though he was always tough and optimistic. "We should go now." Yi Zhangfeng looked at the two of them, slightly shook his head and said, "Dead people cannot resurrect. The demon dwellers have appeared here all of a sudden. No one has ever expected that they had planned to come to the Sun Island and carry on this slaughter. Because of those who have died, you guys have to move on." ChiYan slowly nodded. His eyes were as sharp as a knife. "I understand. Let's go." Even though tears on her face hadn't been wiped out completely, Xiaoxinyan stood up determinedly, then asked Yi Zhangfeng and Lin Yiqi, "Where are we going? Do you know the place where the great-grandfather Xia Jinghe is staying?" Yi Zhangfeng thought for a while before speaking. "Although your great-grandfather is in his insanity, he still can be recovered if he takes the vain spirit pellet. With his cultivation base, in addition to the predestined incident in the dark magnetic noxious mist, once your great-grandfather restores his sanity, his power will advance one step further. If he enters the second sky of the spirit realm, our safety is much more secured." Xiaoxinyan used her white handkerchief to wipe out the tears and then nodded with a sad face. "I know that place. But we no longer have the vain spirit pellet. Even if we arrive there, it is just useless." "Who says so?" Yi Zhangfeng sneered and opened his left hand. The vain spirit pellet he had already offered now appeared in his palm. Under the other three people's astonished eyes, Yi Zhangfeng said with a low voice, "I have done a little trick with this vain spirit pellet. Actually, I have wanted to take advantage of this vain spirit pellet to find your great-grandfather. After your grandfather's death, I have taken it back before using the teleport secret treasure." Xiaoxinyan's beautiful face became angry. Yi Zhangfeng's face was full of embarrassment. He shook his head and said with a smile, "This vain spirit pellet is truly precious. After I have given it to you, I was afraid that you would not keep your words, so I have stealthily done the trick. If I were not careful, perhaps this vain spirit pellet could have no longer existed." "All right," Lin Yiqi knitted her eyebrow, said impatiently, "This place is only around 2,000 miles away from the Sun Island. It is not safe here. I think we should quickly leave this place first, and then we will discuss later. Otherwise, once ChiYan's soul consciousness arrives, we hardly leave here alive." ChiYan nodded and said, "Let's go." The storage ring on Yi Zhangfeng flashed up, and a lozenge silver carpet suddenly appeared, floating in front of him. He revealed a faint smile. His body flashed up, then instantly reappeared on the carpet. He spoke to ChiYan and Xiaoxinyan. "This flying carpet has been created by my evil master. Even though its speed is far less than that of the teleport secret treasure, its full speed is still much faster than that of the third sky of the spirit realm warrior. Hop on, you guys." While Yi Zhangfeng was speaking, Lin Yiqi had casually gotten on the carpet, then urged ChiYan and Xiaoxinyan to hurry. Xiaoxinyan's face still didn't look good. However, she knew the current situation was very dangerous, and thus quickly jumped on the flying carpet without overthinking. She moved a little toward Lin Yiqi to spare some space for ChiYan. ChiYan looked up to the sky with dark eyes. He was about to jump on the carpet, but his face suddenly changed. A wicked consciousness, which was now only 1,000 miles away, was storming in from nowhere. ChiYan understood that this evil consciousness came for him. That's the demon master ChiYan. The ice-cold flame's consciousness suddenly resounded from the blood vein ring. This guy has your soul aura, and thus he has locked you. He is the first sky of the spirit realm warrior. The distance of 10,000 miles only took him around half an hour. After half an hour, he will certainly appear here. ChiYan's eyes became cold while he immediately sent out a message. Can I avoid him? His soul accomplishment is higher than yours. As your soul has been targeted, it is hard to escape from him unless you can teleport 10,000 miles in just a flash. Otherwise, he will always know your position. The ice-cold flame helplessly replied, It seems you cannot escape from this fatal destiny. Within this short distance, you have no chance to survive being hit by a full power strike of a God Realm warrior. ChiYan's body became freezing. He exhaustedly slumped down on the ground. Previously, he had always been full of confidence in himself, as he had assumed that he had an innate ability and perseverance that no one could be compared. In only 5 years, he had broken through straight to the peak Earth realm from the elementary realm. Besides, he also possessed different kinds of mysterious martial spirits, as well as peculiar living forms like the ice-cold flame and the earth flame. He had been expected to surpass everyone else in the future. Today's shock had destroyed his self-confidence, making him understand that his current peak Earth realm cultivation base was still weak. When facing the real strong warriors, he realized he was too fragile, didn't even have a trace of resistance power. The agitation that ChiYan had brought about had pulled him down from the clouds, made him recognize his real current situation. Also today, he earnestly comprehended that only mighty powers could assure his safety in this cruel world. He had been relying on the people of Tianma's group or Dishan's group for a span of time, but at the critical moment, that relationship was no longer reliable, and he couldn't save himself. In this world, everything depended on their owns. One should not hope to entrust his life to someone else. He decided from now on, he would give up all the unrealistic illusions and enhance his own strength. Unfortunately, when he realized these things, he was also about to be crushed to death by ChiYan. 3 of you should go now. I still have something to do. ChiYan helplessly sat down cross-legged, raised his head looking at Xinyan's heart-stirring face, then gently said, Xinyan, take care. I hope that we will see each other again one day. Xinyan's elegant body slightly trembled while her beautiful eyes displayed an astonishing look. She caressingly asked, What do you want to do? She had realized something strange in ChiYan's voice. ChiYan had never been this depressed before. He seemed to give up his hopes. She and ChiYan had known each other for long, but she had never seen ChiYan expose this demeanor. She felt that he should certainly have made a bad decision. Little rascal, what are you doing? Yi Zhangfeng shouted. The Hengluo Sea is very complicated now. Your God Realm warriors have yielded to the demon dwellers. So what else do you want to do here? Do you want a suicide? ChiYan has locked me. He will be here in half an hour. If you guys don't go now, you will never be able to leave here. ChiYan inhaled a deep breath and then spoke to Yi Zhangfeng. Control Xinyan and take her out of here. I don't know where you are heading, but I always want her to live well. Yi Zhangfeng's body shivered. Boom. Lin Yiqi stretched out her hand, placing it on Xinyan's long neck. A soft, resilient flow of strength instantly infiltrated into Xinyan's body, exhausting her body, putting her into unconsciousness. Before falling into the coma, she had struggled, wanting to come down from the carpet, but Lin Yiqi had grabbed her back quickly. Thank you. ChiYan relaxed, revealed a smile and urged, Take her away. I am happy to know you both. After she wakes up, tell her that in this world, she is the only woman who touches my heart. Take care. I hope we would see you again. Yi Zhangfeng's face was extremely heavy. He stared at ChiYan and slowly nodded. I will tell her exactly what you have said without lacking a word. But I hope that you can tell her about this by yourself one day in the future. After that, without waiting for Lin Yiqi to say more words, Yi Zhangfeng activated the silver flying carpet, turning into a beam of light and dashing toward the east. The three of them disappeared in the horizon. ChiYan sat on the ground, blankly watching them flying away. He subconsciously thought that he could hardly see them again. Chapter 335, Craziness. Chapter 335, Craziness. On a lonely island, ChiYan was sitting indifferently, looking toward the east with empty eyes and a dark face. After a while, he stretched his hand caressing the blood vein ring, triggered his mind to send a message to the ice-cold flame and the earth flame. I will try to communicate with the ring's spirit later, asking it to free you. From now on, our fate is over. The ice-cold flame kept silent, didn't respond to him. The earth flame seemed to have just woken up from some peculiar world. After having received ChiYan's message, it was puzzled and hurriedly sent him a message to inquire for more details. As ChiYan knew he didn't have too much time, he briefly explained the 10,000-year earth flame the current desperate situation. The 10,000-year earth flame didn't have any reactions, as if it was digesting his explanation. ChiYan's blood vein ring was sparkling as the two living forms inside it seemed to be calculating something. Right at this time, ChiYan realized the originally diluted sky and earth aura on the island was slowly gathering all of a sudden, getting heavily denser. He was astonished, didn't know what was happening. He couldn't help but look up at the sky. It was unknown when a crystal chunk, as big as a human head, quietly floating in the sky. This crystal chunk slowly descended, and it soon appeared above his head. Holy Spirit God! ChiYan couldn't help but exclaim, raising his head looking at that crystal with astonished eyes. Why are you here? That island is over. I have dived under the ground to escape, following you living aura to come here. The Holy Spirit God sent out a message from the dragon crystal. You have promised to refine a body for me. I'm coming here to find you with the hope that you can fulfill what you have promised. Evil creatures have occupied the island that I had been staying. They could even detect my aura, and thus I had to escape. ChiYan was stunned. After being bewildered for a moment, he spoke up helplessly. I cannot help you because in a little while, my soul and spirit will both perish. You should get out of here soon, as far as possible. After having finished talking, without waiting for the Holy Spirit God, the ice-cold flame, and the 10,000-year earth flame inside the blood vein ring to respond, ChiYan touched the ring, sending his consciousness inside. Ring spirit, I know that you can receive my consciousness. I am going to die. You should eliminate the confinement for the ice-cold flame and the 10,000-year earth flame so that they can be free. How should I arrange this? I only have half of an hour left, so you'd better tell me quickly. If you are too slow, when I am destroyed, I will not be able to do whatever you've asked. The blood vein ring had no reactions. ChiYan was astonished, doubtfully thinking that might be his previous feelings were all illusions. There was no ring spirit inside the blood vein ring. Otherwise, why didn't the blood vein ring have any reactions at this critical moment? With that thought, ChiYan's heart sank to the bottom of the glass. Perhaps God didn't support his intention of freeing the ice-cold flame and the earth flame out of the ring. This made him even more helpless and desperate. A long while later, the blood vein ring suddenly darted a vague stream of light which was abnormally brilliant and covered the area within 10 meters around him. What happened? The ice-cold flames and the Holy Spirit God's thoughts were transmitted at the same time. These two strange living forms with high intelligence displayed their extreme fear as if they were bound by a certain strength. Even the 10,000-year earth flame inside the blood vein ring was irritably impatient, wanting to get out of the blood vein ring. 3 flows of wonderful power instantly spread out from the blood vein ring's splendid stream of light, forcefully pulled the ice-cold flame, the earth flame out of the ring. Under ChiYan's disbelieving look, the Holy Spirit God was pulled down from the sky directly to the profound chi swirl on his abdomen. The ice-cold flame and the earth flame inside the blood vein ring turned into 2 marvelous flames, which were also pulled into that swirl at the same time. The original exhausted profound chi swirl crazily span all of a sudden as it had received the 3 peculiar living forms, the Holy Spirit God, the earth flame, and the ice-cold flame. ChiYan used his soul consciousness to check the interior of his body. His eyes instantly flashed up a trace of horror. While the profound chi swirl on his abdomen was spinning with the breakneck speed, it gradually turned into a strange formation looked like a yin-yang fish diagram. That yin-yang pattern had the ice-cold flame on one side and the 10,000-year earth flame on the opposite side, while the connection between the two of them was the Holy Spirit God, the God that the Holy Spirit sect had worshipped. Under the constraints of some mysterious power, the three peculiar living forms had temporarily been fused together to create a strange formation that looked like a yin-yang pattern. The infinite, tremendous power suddenly burst out in the middle of the originally depleted profound chi swirl. This powerful energy was beyond his imagination. ChiYan's body bones produced the crack-crack sound, and the unbearable pain instantly spread all over his body. At this time, he looked like he was suffering from the torture of the purgatory. It was as if bones and tendons of his entire body were broken by a powerful strength. That swirl crazily revolved at 720 acupuncture points of his body. The aura of Xia was insanely filtered. The negative strength flowing out from his acupuncture points made ChiYan's entire body trembling to the point that he was almost unconscious. Suddenly, blood inside ChiYan's body seemed to burn up. The strength of his blood massively rolled all over his body, gathering in his tendons, like an endless surging river. Second sky of rampage. In an instant, the swirl and the strange transformation that had been happening inside his body had led to the second sky of rampage, which had drained his body instantly. A staggering evil force from his body soared straight to the sky, forming a huge, white pillar of air. Ah! In the severe pain, ChiYan roared madly like a wild beast. He was too painful that he tossed himself on the ground while the uncontrollable strength of his entire body was bursting out. Boom, boom, boom. When he was rolling on the ground, some 100-meter-high, barren hills were struck down. The imposing mountains, which were hundreds of meters high, were like papers, couldn't even bear even one blow of his. Sizzle, sizzle. 720 acupuncture points exuded the white fog impetuously. The white fog was filled with negative power that could make other people tremble in fear. Suddenly, this negative power gathered, poured into his body altogether, and then fused with his blood veins, increasing his evil momentum all the way up, like never-ending. ChiYan's eyes became bloodshot with a maze of blood veins, looked like the eyes of a wild prehistoric beast. His monstrous, evil aura gave other people a feeling that he was bloodthirsty and ruthless. Swoosh! A bunch of black light pierced through the clouds, then suddenly stopped above the island. In just a blink, a huge demon dweller with a body of 3.5 meters tall appeared in the sky. There was a curved horn on his head. His face was full of scars. His dark blue muscles were as firm as steel. His eyes were burning up with a murderous look, coldly looking at the deserted island beneath. Demon Master ChiYan of the 4th Demon Area. From above, with his cold eyes, ChiYan was bluntly watching ChiYan roaring like a wild beast on the island. Boom! ChiYan suddenly descended. His feet stomped on a 300-meter-high mountain on the island, crushing it into rubble scattered everywhere. ChiYan roared and growled while his body directly rolled toward that mountain. Little rascal, finally we meet again. When ChiYan raised his head, the curved horn on his head shot out demonic light straight up to the sky. After 2 roars, his hands flashed up in the air, then they discharged thousands of blood-dripping skulls. The small skulls had the size similar to that of a human head. Meanwhile, the big ones were as big as a small hill. Thousands of bloody skulls released a dense, undispersed, black, demonic aura from their sockets and mouths. The skulls flew out from his palms with the breakneck speed dashing toward ChiYan, producing a demon sound. Roar, roar, roar. ChiYan's eyes were bloodshot. His body shriveled while his clothes were all torn apart. When thousands of skulls were rushing toward him, ChiYan slightly bent his knees as if his body couldn't straighten up, raised his head up to the sky, crazily howling as if he wanted to fight against fate. The white air pillar reached the sky above his head, then suddenly expanded, turning into 5 horrifying, ferocious devils. The 5 negative devils, who had always been sleeping in his sea of consciousness, now had been transformed into physical entities thanks to the condensation of the negative powers. Each of them was more than 10 zhang, hovering in the sky like the demon gods in the high antiquity, seizing those bloody skulls viciously. Crack, crack, crack. The 5 10-meter-tall negative devils snatched the skulls that Ma Qi had released and squeezed them, crushing them into powders that scattered everywhere on the island. The 5 10-zhang-tall negative devils had transformed into the physical entities, which were even more like the demon gods of the demon area than Ma Qi. The 5 negative devils looked up at the sky, fiercely roaring and howling, and then swallowed the heavy demon aura that burst out from Demon Master Ma Qi, just like whales sucking up water. Rich demon aura, which had formerly covered the entire sky, disappeared instantly. It had turned into an energy source for the 5 devils to enhance their strength. Having taken the demon aura, the bodies of the 5 negative devils turned into black and white and were more abnormally horrifying. Their original 10 zhang tall bodies quickly extended and became 15 zhang tall great demon gods who looked like small mountains floating in the air, slowly surrounding ChiYan. ChiYan held his head up, roaring as he felt different kinds of powers crazily running in his body, turning into a wisp of some invisible power, massively pouring into the huge bodies of the 5 negative devils. Ancient demon god clones. Impossible. Ma Qi dark blue eyes were overwhelmed with fear. He blankly looked at the 5 negative devils that were besieging ChiYan, releasing a scream as he didn't even believe in his own eyes. ChiYan bent his knees, releasing a sound like a roar which didn't sound like that of a human. The flesh on his shriveled, naked body split open. 720 acupuncture points in his body emitted a large amount of white smoke. His abdomen seemed to hide a huge ball of light where the dazzling white light was shot out. Every time the white light burst out, bald mountains collapsed one by one. You can possess such tremendous power when you are only at the Earth realm. Kid, you have to die today. Ma Qi was horrified for a while, and then suddenly reacted. Earth-shaking demon aura spurted out from his eyes. Even if you can mediate the ancient demon god clones, you still can't escape death today. Ma Qi laughed viciously, throwing his hand up to the sky, forming a tight fist. A 10-meter-long giant demon saber appeared, tearing the void, falling into his hand. While Ma Qi was holding the 10-meter-long giant demon saber, his horrendous momentum soared quickly. He then dashed toward ChiYan with a cruel smile. Chapter 336, Suicide Break. Chapter 336, Suicide Break. The 10-meter-long, curved moon-shaped demon saber with ink-black blade appeared and burst out tens of thousands of demon lights. Ma Qi was holding the giant demon saber, raising his head, releasing a roar like the demon god descending to this word. After that, he turned into a bunch of demon lights and instantly dashed toward ChiYan. As soon as the demon saber hacked down, tens of thousands of mighty demon lights had led to strange phenomena in the sky and earth, making the cloud and the wind on this island fade away. Earth tremble, bottomless gully reveal. Thick, ink-like demon aura rolled out from those gullies absorbed by the demon saber was like the black sea water of the endless sea madly flowing toward Ma Qi. The 5 10-zhang-tall negative devils were roaring around ChiYan. The 5 devils opened their mouths, which were like black holes, swallowed the endless demon aura deep from underground recklessly. However, the demon aura was too much that it was not easy for the 5 devils to gulp all in a short time. Boundless demon saber. Led demon into body. Ma Qi roared, and a large amount of demon aura wildly flocked toward the demon saber and Ma Qi. Dense demon aura torrentially stormed forward and poured into Ma Qi, making his body swollen instantly. In just a short moment, he became a 100-meter-tall demon dweller. The demon saber was also 3 times bigger, turning to a horrifying 300-meter-long demon saber. It was unknown why Boundless Demon Saber, one of the 3 great demon sabers of the demon area in the remote antiquity, had fallen into Ma Chi-dun's hand. In legends, it had been said that this demon saber could cross the interface between different worlds. The demon dweller holding demon saber could attract limitless demon aura from the demon area, turning them into a physical entity covering the entire body of the user. With the boundless demon saber on his hand, Ma Chi-dun's body was covered with 100,000 tons of demon aura and became a giant demon dweller who was 100 meters tall. In the earth-shaking howls and growls, the demon saber was like a mountain sharply slashing ChiYan's head. ChiYan was standing on the deserted island, holding his head up, looking at the demon saber covering the entire sky while his blazing red eyes glowed with many beams of cruelty. As soon as ChiYan triggered his mind, the 5 negative devils, which were more than 10 zhongs tall, instantly showed their fangs and claws, then soared up into the sky, joining forces to resist the boundless demon saber. The negative energy from 720 acupuncture points torrentially poured into the 5 negative devils. At the same time, at the swirl on ChiYan's abdomen, an earth-shattering cold aura instantly spewed out and quickly overwhelmed his body. A flow of mysterious strength suddenly spread out from his body, seemed to stir the endless sea up. 100-meter-long water columns suddenly flew out from the sea around the island and darted forward. 7 water columns gathered and condensed right on top of ChiYan's head. Splatter, splatter, splatter. The boundless icy power infiltrated into the condensed water columns and then turned into a huge lozenge snowflake enclosing ChiYan. The rhombus-shaped snowflake looked like an imposing, spectacular ice mountain, which was tens of thousands of meters tall, pressing down on the top of ChiYan's head. Cold lights burst out from inside the snowflake, and the eerie, icy aura was spreading out everywhere. Creak, creak, creak. With that snowflake as the center, the entire deserted island was frozen quickly. Wherever the cold lights passed through, everything was covered with hard blocks of ice. In just a blink, the whole island became a frozen island where no rocks or stones could be seen, except for plenty blocks of ice. Bop, bop, bop. 5 negative devils together still couldn't stop the boundless demon saber from hacking down. Under the horrendous pressure of the boundless demon saber, they had to keep retreating. The 5 negative devils then divided into 5 directions, showing their claws, which looked like an anchor, snatching the hilt of the boundless demon saber, wanting to lift the saber up to the sky, preventing it from striking down. Regretfully, it is just a clone of the ancient demon god. If it were the true ancient demon god, honestly, I could not kill you. Ma Chi-dun grinned ruthlessly. His giant body suddenly formed a defensive stance with one hand while the other one was holding the demon saber, striking down once again. The 5 negative devils couldn't stand this destructive demonic power and finally were struck down to the side. The demon saber had no more hindrance and thus released a slash violently. Boom, boom, boom. Terrifying explosions resounded on the island. The ice mountain on the top of ChiYan's head broke down into pieces. Even the solid layer of ice covering the entire island also burst open impetuously. The aftershock of the tremendous power spread out toward the sea around the island, causing the horrifying tsunami. The seawater torrentially rolled in, engulfing the entire island, and under the chill of the island, it was frozen once again. ChiYan was staying hidden under the ice mountain, seeing the demonic power penetrating massively, crazily destroying the ice mountain, and crushing the ice mountain into pieces. He was overwhelmed with fear at heart. One slash of the boundless demon saber on Ma Chi-dun's hand had a great intimidating power that went beyond his imagination. He had never thought that a God Realm warrior could launch such an earth-shaking power. The 3 mysterious living forms of the ice-cold flame, the earth flame, and the Holy Spirit God temporarily merged into one, which helped increase the icy power the ice-cold flame and the Holy Spirit God significantly. They instantly formed a mighty, 1,000-meter-high ice mountain blocking one strike of Ma Chi-dun's saber. If it weren't because of that, he believed his soul and body would have been destroyed. Being able to block one saber slash of mine. Kid, even you are going to die. You can still be proud of yourself. Ma Chi-dun launched another slash, but couldn't instantly smash down the ice mountain. He looked very astonished. Revealing a cruel sneer, Ma Chi-dun brandished his saber and growled, "Little rascal, Yang Tian Emperor is finished." Unexpectedly, this more tricky brat of the Yang family has appeared out of nowhere. If I let you live, your achievement in the future will be probably bigger than that of Yang Tian Emperor. I have to kill you today. While madly talking, Ma Chi-dun lifted his saber again. Million tons of demon aura crazily flocked into the demon saber, making the saber, which was originally 300 meters long, now swelling up once again. At this time, the demon saber was already 400 meters long. The horror of this demon saber almost crushed ChiYan's spirit into pieces. Seeing Ma Chi-dun continue launching another slash, ChiYan in the second sky of Rampage quickly moved away, used his boundless power running inside his body to urge the electric shift instantly. Boom boom. His legs could not bear such a violent force and thus suddenly burst out, flesh and blood scattered everywhere. ChiYan disappeared into thin air. At the moment that the boundless demon saber had hacked down, ChiYan's body had gone. He had moved to another island. Boom. A terrifying, piercing eardrum explosion reverberated. ChiYan was atop a mountain on another island, looking at the island where he had just left earlier with a horrified look. Under the second strike of the boundless demon slash, that island had been split into two halves. A 10,000-meter-long crevasse suddenly appeared. Seawater massively rolled out from it. The splitting island was constantly exploding non-stop, and all ice blocks on the island had broken into pieces. In the earth-shattering explosive sounds, Ma Chi-dun angrily roared, searching for ChiYan's trace. Sizzle, sizzle, sizzle. From 720 acupuncture points inside his body, thick white smoke suddenly shrank. In the next second, he felt a mysterious, intense energy was flowing all over his body, a part of which poured into the profound swirl, and the rest spilled over his bones and tendons, moving mysteriously. An outburst of roar came out from his brain. ChiYan's body violently trembled all of a sudden. He felt his sea of consciousness churned up, caused by that mysterious energy's influx. Together with his soul's sublimation, the host soul in his sea of consciousness was getting bigger and clearer. Along with the surging waves, his sea of consciousness expanded quickly. In a breath, his sea of consciousness had already 3 times bigger. The power of the soul was extremely vigorous. Every ray of the soul was connected, so that he could have a more profound understanding of different kinds of energy. At the same time, he had also detected an enormous wave of life energy like an unshakable mountain on Ma Chi-dun's body. That life energy was truly impetuous. ChiYan's face suddenly changed as he recognized the huge power gap between him and Ma Chi-dun. Ma Chi-dun's plentiful holy spiritual chi was like a nuclear power plant in the other world which could provide him with endless power. Ma Chi-dun stood there, angrily roaring and howling. That sounds like soul-absorbing demon sound pierced through all obstacles, following ChiYan's soul to penetrate his unstable sea of consciousness. Aow ow wow. The 5 negative devils suddenly faced up to the sky, howling. They seemed to have realized that their nest was about to collapse and thus turned into 5 beams of demon light shooting toward ChiYan with the speed which was faster than the soul-terrifying demon sound of Ma Chi-dun. The 5 devils had returned to ChiYan's sea of consciousness before the demon sound flooded into it. The 5 negative devils who had transformed into physical entities now returned into mirages, as if they could freely convert between virtual or illusory bodies. As soon as the 5 devils entered the sea of consciousness, they immediately divided into 5 directions, scattering out horrendous negative emotions, which then formed 5 layers of formation technique. When the soul-penetrating demon sound of Ma Chi-dun struck was over, 5 layers of formation technique had been activated altogether, condensed and blended with each other to impede the soul-penetrating demon sound of Ma Chi-dun, protecting ChiYan's sea of consciousness from being damaged. While his soul was trembling, ChiYan's eyes suddenly brightened like stars. At the critical point of time, under the terrifying pressure of Ma Chi-dun, the aura of the Sky Realm warrior, Xia Shenchuan, finally broke through the bottleneck, helping ChiYan enter the Nirvana realm. When the barrier of this new state had been broken, as ChiYan's sea of consciousness had soon been built for a long time, he could instantly get familiar with the new realm. When his sea of consciousness gradually regained its normal state, ChiYan felt the holy spiritual qi had reached a completely new realm. His body seemed to connect with the sky and earth, could actually feel the mysterious power staying hidden in the world. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. In the profound qi swirl, the yin-yang pattern which had been formed by the combination of the ice-cold flame, Holy Spirit God, and earth flame crazily was revolving as if its elements really wanted to fuse with each other. The sky and earth discrete floating around everywhere, under a call of some power, suddenly gathered at this place and penetrated straight into ChiYan's body. ChiYan's body sucked all the sky and earth aura around as if it had turned into a huge sponge. The mysterious ability to gather the sky and earth aura of the Holy Spirit God abruptly appeared on ChiYan's body. His profound qi swirl span, refining and condensing the sky and earth aura, forming extremely vigorous profound qi which then poured into the swirl. In the middle of the swirl, the ancient profound qi tree, which had disappeared earlier, now suddenly emerged again, crazily sucking the profound qi. ChiYan's momentum became intimidating. Chapter 337. Chapter 335. Crossing arms and doing nothing. Chapter 337. Chapter 335. Crossing arms and doing nothing. The Gu family, on the Thousand Swords Peak. The group of Gu Shao, Yu Qin, Chao Zhilan, Tang Yuannan, and Man Gu was moving in the middle of sharp, disparate sounds with a hazed look on their faces. Numerous warriors of the Gu family on the island were riding a variety of boats, carrying a large number of goods, moving toward the east. On other small, adjacent islands to Gu families, plenty people were also preparing to migrate. After the escape from the Sun Island, they all gathered at this place. A part of them was discussing to find solutions while the others were busy preparing for the migration. When Gu Shao came back, he immediately began to arrange, assembling all of the Gu family's high-class warriors, relocating materials with the fastest speed, and instructing his men to evacuate to the islands of the Heaven Lake Divine Land in the Blackwater Sea. Chao Zhilan knitted her eyebrows while her jade-like hand was holding a six-sided crystal with a serious face, as if she was communicating with the Chao family through that crystal. The four people of Gu Shao, Yu Qin, Tang Yuannan, and Man Gu stopped their convo and looked at her. After a long while, Chao Zhilan retrieved the hexahedral crystal with a gloomy face. Under others' scrutinizing gaze, she gently said, "I have informed my family about the major change on the Sun Island, but I haven't got their response yet. My great-grandfather has still been in the secluded cultivation, but he will receive the news soon. Demon King ChiYan has borrowed the body of Azura King Jiaohan Yi to show up in the Endless Sea. He has the third sky of the spirit realm cultivation base with the earth-shaking power. If the two people Chao Qiu Dao and Yang Yi Tian don't take actions, I am afraid that no one in this immense Endless Sea can stop him." Tang Yuannan shook his head and slightly whined. Yang Tian Emperor used to be a hero before. If he were still in the Endless Sea, perhaps he would have a great fight with Demon King ChiYan, but, having heard these words, the faces of Gu Shao and others became odd, and they could only keep silent. That year, all forces in the Endless Sea associated to carry on the conspiracy to deal with the Yang family. They have also invited Tang Yuannan to join but gotten refused as, according to him, thanks to the Yang family, the powerful demon dwellers hadn't dared to enter the Endless Sea. When Tang Yuannan had heard that Yang Tian Emperor had been captured and confined, he had immediately been aware of bad things. Not only hadn't he joined the rebellion, but he had also persuaded the crowd to save Yang Tian Emperor out of the fourth demon area. Although Tang Yuannan had had foresight, he hadn't gotten everyone's approval. With the lead of Gu Shao and Yu Qin, the others had determinately eradicated the Yang family. They had assumed that Yang Tian Emperor being under confinement was a golden opportunity once in a lifetime. Thus, they had joined forces to invade the Kiara Sea continually, which had led to the Endless Sea's current catastrophe today. The faces of Gu Shao and Yu Qin were obviously embarrassed after Tang Yuannan had reminded them the old story in combination with the current situation. However, although they felt a little bit regretful at heart, they still didn't want to admit their fault. ChiYan has just borrowed Zhao Hani's body to appear, and this state cannot last long. They will probably leave soon. Gu Shao pondered for a while and spoke up with his knitted eyebrows. Zhao Hani had Sky Realm cultivation base, and thus his body cannot withstand ChiYan's intimidating strength. Every day passes, that body will be damaged a little bit. 10 days or half a month max, Zhao Hani's body will be completely crushed without the need of using the extra power. Yuqin nodded. Tang Yuanan laughed coldly, ridiculed them. 10 days or half a month. Ha ha ha. In 7 days maximum, Hung Luosi will be destroyed if there is no external support. The inheritance of the Three Gods sect, and also of Gu family, Dongfang family, the accumulation of thousands of years will be gone. Why Chao Qiu Dao and Yang Yi haven't shown up yet? Yuqin knitted her eyebrows and snarled. Do these two see death, but really do nothing? Would they wait until the demon dwellers eradicate Hengluosi and see death arrives in front of them to start taking actions? Chao Zhilan revealed a wry smile, quietly bowed her head as she didn't know what her great-grandfather was thinking either. She just felt something wrong. As Yuqin didn't see Chao Zhilan uttering a word, she snorted coldly while her eyes were a little unfriendly. Right at this moment, Tang Yuanan suddenly looked at the sky, pointing toward a direction and exclaimed in fear, "What is happening?" Everyone subconsciously raised their heads, looking up to the direction Tang Yuannan's finger was pointing. In that direction, torrential black demon aura started surging, like a fabric roll wrapping the sky and earth. In that torrential demon aura, a horrendous flow of energy kept coming up non-stop. Even it was thousands of miles away, people could still feel the peculiar violence. That is an uninhabited island which belongs to the range of the Gu family's power. It is because of the diluted sky and earth aura and poor resources needed for cultivation on that island, we haven't sent any man there to guard. Gu Shao was stunned for a moment while his eyes sparkled with strange lights and then said, however, deep inside the clouds near the island, we have placed a holy eye. After talking, Gu Shao didn't vacillate at all. A god's sword suddenly flew out from his side and turned into a ray of light piercing into the Thousand Swords Peak, seeming to activate some formation technique. In the rumbling sounds, a huge crystal chunk suddenly came out from a corner of the Thousand Swords Peak as it was being lifted and pushed toward in front of everyone by the god's sword. Gao Shu closed his eyes, didn't say anything while his hands were constantly launching many beams of god light penetrating into the huge crystal. Inside the crystal, 3 strange, sparkling god swords were quickly flying around that looked like flying dragons and dancing phoenix, as it was projecting some scene. In the fluttering silver lights, numerous dots of light condensed and showed a clear picture under everyone's attentive look. ChiYan, Tang Yuanan, and Chao Zhilan couldn't help but scream with astonishment. Their eyes flooded with doubt. Gu Shao and Yuqin also had a slight change on their faces, blankly watched the scene showing inside the crystal, looking at a person with soaring momentum crazily sucking all the sky and earth aura on the island. That is Ma Qidun. Tang Yuannan's face changed in fear while his body trembled. He couldn't help but exclaim out loud. Ma Qidun has found him. Such a regret? Gu Shao shook his head as he was wearing a regretful face, assuming that ChiYan would undoubtedly have to die. He was one of few people who knew that there was an animosity between ChiYan and Ma Qidun. That year, with the support of Gu Lai and Gu Jingu, father and son, Ma Qidun had gone to the Soul Gather Pool. However, ChiYan had used some secret treasure and had almost destroyed his soul. After that incident, Imo Duan Hun had captured Gu Jingu to blackmail the Gu family so that the Gu family had to pay a painful price. After Gu Jingu had returned, he had told everyone the story in details. At that time, Gu Shao had also known that there had been an animosity between ChiYan and Ma Qidun. Right now, seeing Ma Qidun staring at ChiYan, although Gu Shao was still surprised, he understood the reason. Demon dwellers always took revenge for their animosity. Ma Qidun had remembered ChiYan's soul that year. This time, as he had entered the Endless Sea and detected ChiYan, he obviously had to kill ChiYan cruelly so that he could cool down his monstrous flames of anger inside his heart. How can it be? Chao Zhilan's beautiful face was agitated while her eyes displayed a disbelieving look. She shook her head and mumbled with a low voice. He couldn't gather the profound qi in his body and thus should have been killed on the Sun Island. How come he could run this far and also make such a big move like this? He and Ma Kedun should already have engaged in a fight for a long while. Tang Yuannan didn't believe it either, bewilderedly looking at the scene inside the crystal. The light from his eyes shot out everywhere like sharp swords. Although I also don't want to believe it, that island clearly has some traces of fight. The island has been split into two halves, and there are plenty pervasive broken ice blocks caused by the ice-cold flame. Tang Yuannan stretched his hand out to point at the scene while talking. How could this be? Yu Qin's wrinkled face suddenly shivered. Her eyes shot out a shocking light. She kept shaking her head and said, "That little rascal only has the Earth Realm cultivation base. Meanwhile, Ma Qidun is in the first sky of the Spirit Realm. Moreover, demon dwellers are very good at fighting. If we face Ma Qidun, I am afraid that we have more chance to lose than win. How can ChiYan survive under Ma Qidun's pursuit until now?" Whether it was Tang Yuannan, Gu Xiao, or Chao Zhilan, they all opened their eyes wide, gazing at the scene inside the crystal. "Do you think we should do something?" Tang Yuannan was stunned for a few seconds, then quickly got his senses back and said, "That island is not far from here. I think if we are hurried, we can save him. Perhaps he will be the hope of the endless sea in the future." Gu Xiao's and Yu Qin's visages suddenly became strange. "So?" Tang Yuannan's face darkened. He asked, "Don't you think so? Watch a little bit more. If he cannot hold it anymore, it is still not late to go to save him." Gao Shu knitted his eyebrows and said coldly, "I always have a feeling that it is a trap. Maybe ChiYan and other demon masters are all there together, and they just pretend to be weak so that we will go there and save him. That will then be easy for them to catch us all." Yu Qin also agreed with a nod. Even though we are in the God realm and have teleport treasure, there are still some limits. If we really get trapped there, under the strength of ChiYan and other demon masters, we will hardly escape. Perhaps ChiYan has arranged the evil heavenly demon wind god formation. Just think about Yang Tian Emperor's consequence. Tang Yuannan's face suddenly changed. Although his heart wanted to save ChiYan, he was a little indecisive having listened to those two people. It was because he also couldn't believe that ChiYan with the Earth Realm cultivation base could survive that long in Ma Qidun's hand. ChiYan's profound qi cannot be reunited. I knew about this when I was in the Sun Island. There should be something strange here. Chao Zhilan's eyes were complicated, as if she didn't want to believe that ChiYan could withstand such a terrifying strength like that. Believing what was happening in front of her eyes meant her judgment was wrong. One day ago, she took the initiative to leave ChiYan, drew a border with him, and wiped out her bud of love for ChiYan in her heart. She didn't want to admit that she had a short vision. Chapter 338. A Complete Fusion. Chapter 338. A Complete Fusion. On the deserted island, ChiYan's momentum rose up like a rainbow. Being attracted by his profound qi swirl, drifting sky and earth aura on the sea surface nearby rolled and poured into his body massively. In such a thick, suffocating sky and earth aura, the giant profound qi tree trunk appeared once again in the middle of the profound qi swirl. ChiYan then absorbed it desperately. The strange living form, Holy Spirit God, had a special ability to gather the surrounding sky and earth aura. After having fused with the ice-cold flame and the earth flame, this ability was enhanced substantially. The amount of the sky and earth aura that it absorbed could be compared to the volume of demon aura condensed by the infinite demon saber in a short time. After having received a big amount of sky and earth aura, ChiYan's depleted swirl now was overflowed with profound qi. Tens of thousands of strands of profound qi seeped into the strange space, making the ancient profound qi tree swollen all of a sudden. The ancient profound qi tree expanded. Each branch of the tree started to be crystallized translucently. His profound qi became solid. At the same time, his broken legs, caused when he had been urging the electric shift, were being healed under the powerful repairing force of the immortal martial spirit. blood and flesh in his legs were reborn, and finally, his 2 legs were restored to its former state. Kid, you are powerful indeed. Dun's 100-meter-tall body was hovering in the sky above the deserted island, holding the infinite demon saber in his hand, growling, "Unfortunately, I will not give you a chance to grow." From the demon saber, a black demon light extended hundreds of meters like a galaxy in the ether. The demon light weighed more than 10,000 kilograms. It brought along the power of 10,000 mountains like a mighty dragon leaping up from the sea or like an ancient demon beast. It arrogantly released its full power strike down, which could shock the entire sky and earth. ChiYan's face changed dramatically. Under the terrifying intimidation of the infinite demon saber, his sea of consciousness kept shaking non-stop while his host soul was crumbling. Seemed like it couldn't bear that shaking pressure. As soon as the 5 devils realized the situation was not going well, they hurriedly turned into 5 devil shadows and instantly ran into the sea of consciousness. His sea of consciousness, which had constantly been shaking, finally stopped being convulsive. ChiYan's host soul could regain its control of the body after the concussion. Seeing the demon saber blooming saber lights of hundreds of meters long, and also hearing the crackling sounds echoing in the sky, ChiYan showed a trace of craziness in his eyes. Right at this moment, the blood vein ring burst out numerous lights about 10,000 zhongs long. Bands of light covered the entire sky and earth, forming a huge dome that enshrouded ChiYan. Crack, crack. The 100-meter-long saber light of the demon saber hacked on the huge dome condensed by the blood vein ring's light, as if it wanted to tear down the sky and earth. The dome suddenly distorted. The place where the saber struck down was deeply depressed down about 10 meters away from the top of ChiYan's head. When a flow of blazing red waves spread out from the huge dome, the island instantly broke into 10 pieces. ChiYan was terrified. Dun was also dumbstruck. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The blood vein ring suddenly transmitted a wonderful sound as if an ancient soul, which has been silent for millions of years, got enraged by the demon saber and now produced a crazy, arrogant resonance. In the blood vein ring's sound, the ancient patterns on the ring's surface started to spin up mysteriously. Each pattern seemed to contain tens of thousands of creatures, and they were multiplying. Hundreds of millions of trembling mountain, and countless supernatural powers appeared gradually. ChiYan's head was agitated abruptly. ChiYan's spirit was little aghast as his soul seemed to enter a strange space on the ring's surface. He saw an ancient god with the head lifting the sky and feet stomping the earth, aura, and ancient dragon gods wrapping around him. These ancient dragon gods penetrated into his body like bulging meridians. Every acupuncture points in his body were emitting dazzling god lights, and they seemed to contain all creatures. 720 acupuncture points seemed to hide 720 worlds. Each of them existed independently, contained multiplying creatures, and numerous high-class warriors were born and died. The flow of history of the past, present, and future appeared most visually. The ancient gods stood in the middle of the vast, chaotic world, releasing unreconciled howling toward the depth of the universe. That sound shook countless worlds, flowing toward the end point of the universe, the end of the world. Boom. ChiYan's head was in extreme pain. The host soul in his sea of consciousness expanded crazily all of a sudden. Hundreds of millions of streams of power impetuously poured into the sea of consciousness. The blood vein ring's surface cracked a slit that naked eyes were unlikely to see. The 9 Serenity's soul-devouring flame was suddenly pulled out and then thrown straight into his sea of consciousness like a source of the nutrient. The 9 Serenity's soul-devouring flame released a terrified cry. This third-rank heaven flame seemed to understand the constraints of fate and feel its life be in danger. Thus, it violently struggled to get out of the bind of some strength in ChiYan's sea of consciousness. However, no matter how strong it was struggling to resist, it was just in vain. The 9 Serenity's soul-devouring flame finally fell into ChiYan's host soul and turned into the host soul's third eye, which was then refined and emerged in between his eyebrows. The unbearable pain came up from the sea of consciousness. ChiYan held his head, screaming and howling like a wild beast. At the same time, Ma Chi-dun continually put forth all of his strength in swinging the infinite demon saber and striking one slash down. The huge, glowing red dome, which was covering ChiYan, once again blocked the blow. However, numerous cracks started to appear as it seemed to be broken at any time. ChiYan was screaming and growling. At the same time, the blood vein ring also burst out. Demon crystals of demon beasts directly flew out, exploded on top of his head, and then turned into a beam of profound chi energy rushing into that enormous blazing red dome. Having received the demon crystal's energy, the surface of the red dome instantly recovered as ever. Ma Chi-dun roared indignantly, waved his saber, and hacked down once again. ChiYan was tossing himself on the ground, enduring the extreme pain, feeling the fusion of his host soul and the Nine Serenity's soul-devouring flame, sensing his surging sea of consciousness. The five devils, who were hiding inside his sea of consciousness, also seemed to realize the terrifying transformation and thus carefully stayed hidden as they couldn't escape from the sea of consciousness. In the peculiar space of the profound swirl, the ancient profound chi tree grew quickly. Each branch of the tree was sparkling like jade, turning into a solid state, which was overflowed with massive energy that could terrify other people. Thousands of miles away. While watching this scene through the crystal, the group of Tang Yuannan, Chao Zhilan, Gu Xiao, Yu Qin, and Man Gu were all startled with their popped eyes, dropping jaws, and dull faces as if they were nailed down on the ground without being able to move and simply forgot who they were. Everyone was so terrified that their minds were all in shock, and their breathing stopped as well. They just blankly watched the explicit scene inside the crystal. A long while later, Tang Yuannan's body suddenly trembled as he awoke from fear. He was dumbstruck for a moment before flying away, ignoring other people. Right after Tang Yuannan had left, Gu Xiao, Yu Qin, Chao Zhilan, and Man Gu restored their consciousness in surprise. The four of them exchanged looks, and they could clearly see the fear in each other's eye. The Yang family has lost Yang Tian Emperor, but then this ChiYan, who is even more terrible than him, has appeared out of nowhere. If this kid doesn't die today, no one in the Endless Sea can suppress him in the future. Gu Xiao kept silent for a long while before looking at Chao Zhilan and speaking with a low voice. When this little rascal grows up, even your great-grandfather Chao Qiudao cannot restrain him. Chao Zhilan's delicate body suddenly shivered. Her eyes were full of remorse. Until this moment, she knew what she had missed. Chao Zhilan wanted to cry deeply in regret and intensely repented of missing out the person who will have an earth-shattering future. If he doesn't die today, Endless Sea will be in his hand in 10 years. Yu Qin released a long sigh, looking at Chao Zhilan, then shifted her eyes to the east, muttered, Zhong Lidun, who is the first rank in the power rankings, can't hold the candle to him. The Yang family is where heroes were born. We are going to save him. Chao Zhilan's charming body slightly trembled. She suddenly cried, because of the Endless Sea, we have to save him. He will be the key to deal with the demon dwellers. Chao Ai. Man Gu slightly shook his head with a complicated face. You guys. Chao Zhilan was floundered for a moment and then realized something instantly. She threw a glance at the other people, sneered, and said coldly, You are afraid now? If he doesn't die, even if the demon dwellers leave, we still hardly escape from this catastrophe. Gao Shu bowed his head, didn't dare to look at Chao Zhilan, and said with a cold voice, We used to deal with the Yang family together. As long as ChiYan is alive, once he grows up, he will certainly take bloody revenge on us. Your Chao family will not escape from his vengeance easily. If you don't want to become Yang family's subordinate, it's better just to stand aside to watch and do nothing. He is too strong. This Endless Sea will not be able to control him. Yu Qin also shook her head, releasing a sigh. If Chao Qiudao and Yang Yitian know that the Yang family has this kind of person, they will also be willing to see his premature death. Due to our families and the martial spirit palace, these two people will not give him a chance to develop further. He must die. Gu Xiao bowed his head and slightly shouted. Chao Jie, Endless Sea really cannot tolerate him. Man Gu also shook his head and sighed, No one benefits if he is alive. Everyone knows about Yang family's strong and domineering deeds, and we have joined forces many times to deal with them. If ChiYan is still alive, he will definitely break our homes and take our lives. Chao Zhilan's beautiful eyes exposed a trace of confusion. She blankly looked at the crystal and hesitated. Dingling! Suddenly, the sound came up from the bracelet on her arm. Chao Zhilan was stunned, immediately touched the bracelet. The crystal chunk that she used to communicate with the Chao family quietly emerged from her hand. Having used her soul to communicate for a while, Chao Zhilan immediately paled. After that, she released a sad sigh and mumbled, "My family also seems to know the things here. As you've said, they don't want him to live." As she had finished those words, Chao Zhilan sat down helplessly, stopped clamoring to save ChiYan, just dazedly looked at the crystal in front of her. ChiYan didn't know when he had stood up. A mysterious sword was hovering above his head. On the sword, many closed eyes opened successively. The endless evilness from those eyes came in. Chapter 339. Sword Breaks the Void. Chapter 339. Sword Breaks the Void. ChiYan bent his knees, looked at Ma Qi-dun's 100-meter-tall body and the huge, boundless demon saber with his glowing red eyes. His face twisted, displayed a terribly ferocious look. His body's aura seemed to lead to the anomaly of the sky and earth. Enormous tornadoes appeared from the sea around the island. He stood there motionlessly while the blood vein ring emitted a dazzling rainbow. The giant mysterious sword from the chasm battlefield hovered around 10 meters above his head as if it was gathering all powers. Shriek, shriek, shriek. The huge, glowing red dome, which was enclosing ChiYan, was constantly being pounded by the demon saber. The gigantic dome was as thin as the wings of a cicada, as it seemed to be vulnerable, couldn't bear even one strike. However, it was still resilient in blocking continuous slashes of the demon saber without breaking until now. Ma Qi-dun roared and howled bluntly. Many beams of demon light shot out from his body, then condensed and hovered around his body without dispersing. The boundless demon saber, which weighed more than tens of thousands of kilograms, kept releasing terrifying Nine Serenity's demon aura. The ground on the deserted island ripped off. Thick, inky black demon aura torrentially spew out and then crazily poured into the demon saber, making one of the 3 great demon sabers of the demon area in the remote antiquity even more horribly violent. The mutation in ChiYan's sea of consciousness had gradually subsided. His host soul and the Nine Serenity's soul-devouring flame had blended into one. The Nine Serenity's soul-devouring flame, which ranked the 3rd among the heaven flames, became the 3rd eye of his host soul. That eye scattered faint bright silver light, dissolving into his sea of consciousness, continuously enhancing his sea of consciousness soul strength. At the convergence of profound chi on his abdomen, the ice-cold flame, the earth flame, and the Holy Spirit God had fused with each other, forming the yin-yang fish diagram. The ancient profound chi tree rooted in the strange space amid the swirl, sucking the amazing profound chi. Even the naked eyes could see the degree of growth. That ancient profound chi finally became imposing and mighty, obscuring the entire sky and earth. Due to the stimulation of the torrential surging strength, the mysterious sword flew out of the blood vein ring, strangely hanging around above his head. The closed eyes on the sword opened slowly. Every time one of those eyes opened, the evil strength of the mysterious sword seemed to double. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The mysterious sword hovering above his head seemed to have the power to twist the void. Strange lights suddenly burst out from the space where that sword was drifting around, and then space rifts appeared. Inside those space rifts, people could vaguely see many visible colorful streams of light which were like shooting stars flashing and fleeting over the deep universe. A flow of earth-shaking evil aura slowly bred from the sword. ChiYan was standing under the dome, feeling the tremendous energy of the ice-cold flame, the Holy Spirit God, and the earth flame on his abdomen as he could sense that the soul power inside his sea of consciousness was crazily spurting out and rolling into that mysterious sword. While his body's energy was wildly flowing away, More eyes on the mysterious sword had been opening. Ma Qidun bluntly released howls, also seemed to feel ChiYan's mutation, and thus, a feeling of insecurities suddenly sprang in his heart. As he didn't dare to hesitate, in the middle of growls and howls, Ma Qidun condensed his body's strength, poured the endless demon power into the boundless demon saber, giving it a power which could tear the sky apart. Because Ma Qidun was trying his best to control the boundless demon saber, it seemed his huge body couldn't bear it any longer. As demon light shot out more and more, cracks started to appear on his body. Swoosh! The demon saber finally hacked down. The glowing red dome, created by the condensation of the lights from the blood vein ring, also got the extra support of the demon crystals, eventually could not stand it anymore, cracked once again, creating a terrifying rift. Dense demon aura had found the entrance, so they crazily flowed in and filled the whole dome. Boom, boom, boom. The demon aura that had flooded into the dome produced an explosive shaking sound all of a sudden. In that appalling noise, the enormous dome was finally fragmented, turning into 10,000 blazing red dots of light and returning to the blood vein ring on ChiYan's finger. Ma Qidun laughed cruelly. As soon as he saw the enormous dome had broken, he didn't hesitate any longer, violently swung the demon saber like a black band of galaxy sweeping across the two worlds, viciously slashing toward ChiYan. He tried to crush ChiYan into powder, destroyed his body and spirit without leaving any slightest trace of existence. ChiYan grimaced while his blazing red eyes suddenly glinted with a trace of craziness. Oh! Making a sharp roar, he didn't overthink anymore. Instead, he poured all the energy of his body into the mysterious sword. On the gigantic sword, malicious eyes suddenly shot numerous intertwining evil lights aiming for the space rifts. Many flows of magical power from other worlds abruptly infiltrated into the mysterious sword. The sword, which had clearly been much smaller than the boundless demon saber, now suddenly became bigger, turning into a long god sword like a 10,000 Zhanghai mountain instantly. The eyes on the sword, which were like eyes of a demon god, filled with all kinds of violent, crazy, desperate, and bloodthirsty emotions. The god sword dashed toward the boundless demon saber which was hacking down the top of ChiYan's head without being in need of ChiYan's control. There was no sound. There was no single earth-shaking sound. When the boundless demon saber and the mysterious sword collided, the sky and earth was abnormally quiet all of a sudden, so quiet that it terrified other people. ChiYan raised his head looking up to the sky with his surprised eyes. Strange dots of light from where the boundless demon saber and the mysterious sword had collided slowly emerged, gradually got bigger and continually expanded. Wherever those dots of light passed through, the sky was strangely indented. The nearby islands just disappeared into thin air, and hundreds of millions of tons of seawater drowned everything down. Even the island under his feet also abruptly sank deep into the earth. Hundreds of millions of tons of seawater instantly flooded in, drowning ChiYan. In the seabed, ChiYan still looked at the sky. The surroundings were still tranquil. After that, Ma Qidun's 100-meter-tall body instantly turned into numerous demon lights, dissipating. After those demon lights had disappeared, Ma Qidun's real ferocious body finally emerged. It was unknown why Ma Qidun's right hand, which was holding the boundless demon saber, had burst open. His bones then turned into ashes. The right half of his body was a mess of flesh and blood, which looked like it had suffered a terrifying tremor that could crush his body completely. On the dark blue water, it was the first time Ma Qidun exposed his fear. He crazily screamed out while his left hand grabbed the boundless demon saber that had just slipped out of his right hand. His body turned into a bunch of black lights, flying toward the Sun Island with the fastest speed. He was fleeing like a beast. The giant sword, like a 10,000 Zhanghai mountain, drifted around in the sky. A third of the number of the opened eyes on the sword was now closing successively. The sword gradually shrank and returned to its normal size. At the same time, ChiYan's energy also stopped pouring into the mysterious sword. After having looked at the sky and watched the mysterious sword becoming smaller and slowly descending, ChiYan hurriedly tried to use his mind to call the sword. There was no response. The mysterious sword seemed to be very arrogant, didn't put a little kid with the Nirvana realm cultivation base into its attention, continued sinking all the way. At the moment it dropped into the water, the god's sword turned into a rainbow which then suddenly disappeared into the blood vein ring. ChiYan used his mind to look at inside the blood vein ring and realized that the mysterious sword was silently hanging around at a corner without any lights or evil aura. All the eyes on the sword had been closed again. Everything had restored to its normal state as if nothing had ever happened before. ChiYan raised his head, looking at the sky, and saw the sky was still distorted, and the space rifts hadn't completely healed after just a short time. What had happened could not instantly disappear. This whole scene reminded him of what the giant sword had done. The sword and the boundless demon saber had collided, creating a tremendous force that had broken Ma Chi-dun's demon body, crushed his right hand which held the demon saber, and splattered his half-right body's flesh and blood, causing him severe injuries. Ma Chi-dun had the first sky of the spirit realm cultivation base, and his strength was reinforced holding the treasure of the demon area. In the fourth demon area, he was ranked only after the terrifying top-class warriors ChiYan and Brazen. After having arrived the Endless Sea, he had fought with the palace master of the evil wonderland, forced them to surrender, and carried on the slaughter all the way from the Kiara Sea to the Hengluo Sea. The number of high-class warriors who had died in his hand was countless. Such fierce and powerful masters with the boundless demon saber in his hand had suffered severe injuries on his body and a crushed right hand. ChiYan felt aghast at heart. His soul consciousness quietly watched that mysterious sword with both delighted and frightened feelings at the same time. He was scared because he could not control this mysterious sword completely. He didn't know how to rule it, or whether he was capable of controlling it or not. Moreover, he wasn't sure if this sword would unexpectedly do something rash. ChiYan. At this moment, a call of Tang Yuan Nan came up from the sea surface above ChiYan's head. The sun god was riding the flame unicorn, bewilderedly gazing at the devastated island for a while, watching the big surging waves on the sea and the space rifts which were slowly healing, didn't know what kind of earth-shaking things had happened here. He wasn't sure whether ChiYan still survived or not because he didn't detect ChiYan's aura even though his soul consciousness was covering the entire area. Under the sea, ChiYan raised his head, looking at the flame unicorn, and he could be certain that Tang Yuan Nan was here. After being stunned for a moment, he started floating to the surface and then instantly felt the powerlessness spreading out all over his body. The blood vein ring had stopped flashing and gradually quieted down. Tang Yuan Nan immediately realized ChiYan's aura and hurriedly rushed toward him. Chapter 340, Lord of the Future. Chapter 340, Lord of the Future. On the Thousand Swords Peak, the four people, Gao Shu, Yu Qin, Chao Zhilan, and Mangu blankly looked at the crystal in front of them with dull faces. They kept silent for a very long time. Through the crystal, they had seen clearly the scene where ChiYan's huge sword had suddenly appeared. After only one blow, it had seriously injured Ma Chi-dun and made his right arm burst out terribly to the point that scattering pieces of flesh could have been seen. This scene engraved in the hearts of four people so deeply that they could never forget it. Ma Chi-dun, the superpowered demon master from the fourth demon area, together with his terrifying demon saber, was extremely arrogant and horrendously powerful. Even those who were watching the scene through the crystal could sense the tremendous strength that the demon saber in Ma Chi-dun's hand had spurted out. Gu Shao and Yu Qin placed their hand on their chests, asking to themselves that if they had faced Ma Chi-dun, under his mighty power of his demon saber, they could have only sheltered on the edge of the road to avoid him, didn't dare to dawdle under his cruel slaughter. Meanwhile, ChiYan was different. Not only had he directly resisted Ma Chi-dun, but he had also used that mysterious sword to injure Demon Master Ma Chi-dun severely, cut off one hand of the first sky of the spirit realm warrior. What was this concept? What was this situation? The four of them were dumbstruck like wooden chickens, even stopped breathing, didn't believe in their own eyes as they didn't believe that the scene happening on the crystal was true. What was ChiYan's realm? What was Ma Chi-dun's realm? The gap was not only one realm. However, not only had ChiYan been alive under that demon dweller, but he had also wounded Ma Chi-dun seriously. That incident was basically out of the imagination of the four of them, ruined their entire great plans. After having realized ChiYan's power, the four of them felt distasteful as if they had knocked over the flavored bottle. Chaotic emotions surged in their hearts, which was hard to use any words to describe. It seems like the plan of borrowing Ma Chi-dun's hand to kill him is impossible. Gao Shu was silent for a very long while, bewilderedly looking at the crystal mirror with empty eyes. His face became odd. I am afraid that the endless sea will be ChiYan's world in the future. Gao Shu sighed deeply. His heart was full of sorrow and grief. He subconsciously thought of the young generation of the Gu family, trying to search through his memories, but he couldn't find anyone who could be compared to ChiYan. Gu Jiangu? Gu Linglong? Gu Xiao shook his head, beamed out a miserable smile from the corner of his mouth, secretly envy Yang Tian Emperor for being so lucky. From an unknown remote place, Yang Tian Emperor had casually found a descendant who was truly an innate talent with unlimited potential and infinite room to develop. Incredible, incredible. Yu Qin mumbled to herself with a low voice while wrinkles on her face shivered slightly. It seemed her decrepit body couldn't stand this shock. She was somehow disheartened, wondering if she was already old and was no longer suitable to solve the endless sea's matters. This guy is really crazy. Not only is his body extremely sturdy, but his power can also achieve such violent intensity. Previously, at the hot spring, it was lucky that he had only used his physical strength to fight with me. If he had used the mysterious sword, I think, Mangu displayed a look of lingering fear and said, I think I don't even have the guts to stand in front of him. Chao Zhilan's beautiful face was gloomy and pale while her heart was full of bitterness. She had never felt dispirited like today. All along, she was very confident in her ability to evaluate things. The way she considered everything was very accurate. Because of that, after having discovered that ChiYan couldn't gather profound qi anymore, she had decisively left ChiYan, cut off the trace of subtle affair that had just budded inside her heart. As the successor of the Chao family in the future, she had grown up in the struggle of gaining benefits, deeply understood how important it was for a woman like her to have a grasp of a strong dependence. Initially, she had felt her decision was right. As she had assumed that ChiYan couldn't bring her a better future, she had rationally let go of him. Regretfully, ChiYan's performance today had completely smashed her usual self-confidence, torn off her mindset that she had been preserving for many years. She knew in this life that it would be difficult for her to forget what ChiYan had brought her. ChiYan will certainly kill him. Gao Shu coldly shouted all of a sudden, as if he was comforting or motivating himself. The better his performance is, the more chance that demon dwellers will not let him go easily. I think either ChiYan or Bo Sun doesn't want to see the Yang family to have a descendant who is even more dangerous than Yang Tian Emperor. Right. He will definitely not have any room to continue developing. Such a regret for a future hero who is going to be destroyed. Yu Qin also agreed with a nod. She also knew that once Ma Chi-dun told ChiYan about the fight between him and ChiYan, no matter how busy ChiYan was, he would desperately find ChiYan and directly kill him at all cost. With ChiYan's ability, demon dwellers surely would not stand idle, but they would quickly eliminate the future most intimidating threat in the shortest possible time. The island no longer existed. On the blue sea, there were only surging waves, huge tornadoes, or frightening tsunami. ChiYan was slowly floating up to the surface of the sea, his entire body fatigued. The peculiar swirl which had been created by the fusion of the ice-cold flame, the earth flame, and the Holy Spirit God seemed to subside gradually in the middle of the profound qi halo. Perhaps because the mysterious sword had almost consumed these three massive energies, they needed to have a deep sleep for a short while. His sea of consciousness was solid. His host soul quietly stopped above the sea of consciousness and fell into silence. Even the eye at his glabella was closed. Although the fusion of the host soul and the nine serenities soul-devouring flame was temporarily stabilized, making them merge into one required a long journey. After the fight, ChiYan's physical strength had been drained 70 or 80%. The backlash of the second sky of rampage had spread out, making his body more and more tired. When he floated on the sea, he realized that he needed to recover immediately. Otherwise, if he encountered another high-class warrior, he would not be able to survive. The flame unicorn was covered with a cluster of fires suspending above the sea. It was carrying Tang Yuannan, who was solemnly sitting with his eyes flooded with fear. After ChiYan had surfaced on the sea, without thinking, Tang Yuannan instantly jumped off from the flame unicorn, reached out to grab him, and then pulled him up on the flame unicorn. Without waiting for ChiYan to utter any words, Tang Yuannan slightly called the flame unicorn. It immediately retrieved all the flames surrounded its body. As soon as the flames disappeared into its body, the flame unicorn turned into a dark red beast. Although its body was still hot, the intense heat was no longer frightful. Tang Yuannan held ChiYan and quickly mounted on the flame unicorn. His eyes raked around, quietly releasing his soul consciousness, and then patted the flame unicorn. The flame unicorn's 4 hoofs moved, turned into a bunch of red lights flying away as fast as lightning, and then disappeared in just a blink, leaving no trace. Half an hour later, on an island belonging to the power range of 3 gods sect, a red light flashed up, and the sun god Tang Yuannan on the flame unicorn, together with ChiYan, appeared altogether. Tang Yuannan didn't say anything, swung his arm, releasing a beam of great sun holy lights. The holy lights were like fire snakes quickly drilling into the ground. At the center of the uninhabited island, a marvelous ancient formation appeared. As soon as that formation emerged, it immediately launched a strong barrier blockading all kinds of external forces, didn't let any strength to penetrate. The sun god leaped up, bringing ChiYan along with him, and then landed in the middle of the ancient formation. He then instantly triggered his mind to activate the ancient formation. A group of dazzling sunlight flashed. Tang Yuannan, ChiYan, and the flame unicorn disappeared again. When they reappeared, they had already been in a strange palace on the seabed. This palace covered hundreds of acres, but it was devastated, quite old, no longer had its majesty and glory after having endured wind and frost for so long. Countless strange waves rippled above the palace, blocking the blue sea water outside, not letting a trace of sea water infiltrate in. Although the palace was quite dilapidated, many barriers still existed, helping the palace on the seabed waterproof. After having arrived this palace, Tang Yuannan obviously relaxed a lot, waved his hand toward the flame unicorn, commanding it to leave. He put ChiYan down and looked at him blankly. What happened? After a long while, Tang Yuannan broke the silence and asked with a solemn face. ChiYan didn't have any strength left, leaned his body against a block of broken rock, squinted his eyes looking at this strange palace, and said with a frown, "Ma Qi pursued me to kill me. I was almost dead. I have seen some scenes on the Thousand Swords Peak of the Gu family." Tang Yuannan interrupted, frowned, and said, "I just want to know why Ma Qi had disappeared. How come the demon master of the 4th demon area let you live? What did you use to fight off that Ma Qi?" A trace of vigilance flashed across in ChiYan's eyes. His mind, which had been relaxed, was now taut again. Perhaps because of the inner vigilance or the strength in his body had not drained out yet, the swirl that had condensed by the Holy Spirit God, the ice-cold flame, and the earth flame strongly span up all of a sudden. A flow of energy fluctuations which made ChiYan tremble abruptly burst out from inside his body. As ChiYan could feel the changes in his body, his mind was at ease a little bit. He subconsciously moved backward, quietly taking precautions. Right when he saw any of Tang Yuannan's unusual reactions, he would launch his possible full-power strike instantly at all cost. Tang Yuannan's face looked bewildered, but then, he was keenly aware of ChiYan's cautions. "You are too cautious." Tang Yuannan forced a smile, took the initiative to extend the distance with ChiYan. He moved 10 meters backward, retracted his hands into his sleeves at the same time, and then slowly sat down under ChiYan's shining eyes. ChiYan was also a wise man. From Tang Yuannan's gestures, he realized the other's friendliness and thus, he revealed a gentle smile, nodded, and spoke to Tang Yuannan, Ma Qidun's right arm has been destroyed. Perhaps he might know that it is hard to kill me, so he has proactively retreated. What? Tang Yuannan couldn't help but exclaim out loud in surprise. Chapter 341. Presumptuous. Chapter 341. Presumptuous. Ma Qidun is indeed a powerful demon dweller. I think the first sky of the spirit realm warriors of the Endless Sea will encounter difficulties when fighting with him. ChiYan's face still wore a vigilant look. He secretly kept watching for any of Tang Yuannan's expression changes and calmly said, however, my body has enough tricks to be able to escape from death by Ma Qidun's hand. An ordinary God Realm warrior wants to kill me, ha ha ha, he will have to pay a painful price. He was worried that the more he concealed his real strength, the more malicious Tang Yuannan would be, so he briefly told Tang Yuannan the truth. After he listened to what ChiYan said, Tang Yuannan's eyes suddenly brightened while his face expressed a doubtful look. Like Gu Xiao, Yu Qin, and others, Tang Yuannan looked stunned for a while without any reaction before he spoke up again with a strange voice. You mean, you have severely injured Ma Qidun? There were other outsiders to help you? Did I understand that right? ChiYan nodded and revealed a strange smile full of confidence. Tang Yuannan's face was even more eccentric. He couldn't guess ChiYan's real situation and didn't know if ChiYan's words were true or not after all. Thus, he stood in a daze, quietly considering ChiYan's rhetoric. ChiYan kept his face unchanged, increased his vigilance, and was on the alert to improvise. He and Tang Yuannan weren't familiar with each other, and ChiYan didn't know what this person wanted from him in the end, either. Previously, with the three people of Yi Tianma's group, he hadn't felt too much pressure when facing Tang Yuannan. Concurrently, he was here alone. If Tang Yuannan wanted to give him a hard time or wanted to deprive his secret treasures, he wasn't sure whether he could resist him or not. In such uncertain situations, revealing a well-prepared appearance would bring good effects. All right, about the details of the battle between you and Ma Qidun, I will not ask anymore. Out of his expectation, Tang Yuannan kept silent for a while, then suddenly revealed a relaxed smile and said, your body has star martial spirit. No matter what has happened, you are a member of the Three Gods sect. Everyone is a family member. I hope you are not nervous. After finishing his words, Tang Yuannan suddenly whistled. His whistle echoed continuously in the palace and on the seabed for a long time. His whistling sound spread out in all directions in this devastating palace, seeming to draw notice or call someone. ChiYan's face changed. Not only was he not relaxed, but he was also more careful, and then suddenly stood up. Tang Yuannan didn't look at him and continued whistling. Under his whistle, some formation technique of the palace seemed to be lifted. And then, ChiYan saw many silhouettes suddenly emerge from the palaces within the range of 1,000 meters. Surrounding. These people were all wearing the Three Gods sect's tunics and had a profound cultivation base. Most of them seemed to be at the Nirvana realm, and 10 other warriors were at the Sky realm. These warriors of the Three Gods sect arrived here soon after hearing the news. They came out from the palaces around, gathered in front of Tang Yuannan, and respectfully said, Hierarchy. Tang Yuannan nodded and solemnly said, presently, our God sect is encountering the unprecedented experience of great danger and is unlikely to protect the three islands, the sun, moon, and star. The momentum of demon dwellers is ferocious and powerful. I hope that everyone can calm down and won't leave here for the time being. The moon god and I will be responsible for investigating all the activities of the outside world. Many followers of the Three Gods sect nodded and bent down, indicating that they understood. ChiYan squinted, looking at those warriors. A majority of them were at the Nirvana realm. He quietly did a rough calculation. He found that there were more than 300 warriors here, which was a mighty force. In the Endless Sea, the forces that have more than 300 Nirvana realm warriors were only the Chao family, Martial Spirit Palace, and the Yang family. Given the situation that there was no moon god nor star god, the Three Gods sect could still gather this much strength, and that really scared ChiYan at heart. Open the formation technique of the 3 lakes of the sun, moon, and star. ChiYan needs to soak himself in the water of the lakes to unlock the seal of the star martial spirit. Tang Yuan contemplated for a while, and then slightly shouted. The old faces of the sky spirit realm elders showed a glimpse of fright and couldn't help but look toward ChiYan with astonished eyes. Hierarchy. One of the elders hesitated a little bit, couldn't help but speak up. Opening the seal of the star god needs approval from the elders. So, opening the 3 lakes sun-moon star doesn't seem to be in line with the rules. Tang Yuan frowned and decisively said, "This time is different from the past. ChiYan has proved his ability. His body has the star martial spirit, and I can prove that. In this critical point of time where demon dwellers are invading, don't let the rules bind us. We should do the things that need to be done." The 3 God sect's elders expressed doubts when listening to Tang Yuan. They were hesitant, uncertain, and didn't seem to agree with Tang Yuan's decision. When ChiYan becomes the star god, he will get the jurisdiction of the islands. I will cede a part of the islands, which are under my control. I will not force you to give up any of your islands. Tang Yuan revealed a cold smile. Momentarily, demon dwellers are mopping up the Hengluo Sea. The islands that are under your control will soon turn into ruins. After these words, the faces of some elders of the 3 gods sect suddenly changed, hesitated for a moment before sadly nodding without saying anything further. "So, have you agreed with my decision?" Tang Yuan asked, impatiently. Having heard that question, the 3 gods sect elders nodded reluctantly, feeling that there were no other better calculations given the current situation. Wait. Under the astonished eyes of the disciples of the 3 God sect, ChiYan suddenly stood up and unhappily said, "Hierarchy Tang, what are you saying? When have I agreed to become the star god of your 3 God sect?" Many of the 3 God sect's disciples, including the elders who had previously nodded, were very unhappy after hearing ChiYan's words. They looked at ChiYan with a trace of anger. Tang Yuan was also dumbstruck and asked, "Becoming the star god, the seal of the star martial spirit in your body will be opened, and thus you can learn its mystery. This brings you great benefits for your future achievements. It is OT just that, but becoming the star god, you will possess great powers. In the god sect, except for the moon god and me, everyone must listen to your orders. Moreover, you will get 1/5 of the number of the 3 God sect's islands. So, with those benefits, do you still need to consider?" "There are no free meals in this world." ChiYan shook his head. "I don't believe that becoming the star god of the 3 gods sect only has benefits and no restraints. I want to know what I need to do if I become the star god. Do I need to comply with your 3 God sect's rules?" "Only minor things." Tang Yuan smiled indifferently. Being the star god of the 3 God sect, when the god sect faces danger, you only need to be responsible and take care of the star gods' forces. When the god sect confronts enemies, you have to kill the enemies and protect the god sect's interests. That's it. What if the god sect's interests are in danger, but I don't want to get involved in protecting them?" ChiYan suddenly asked after contemplating for a while. "If so, the god sect will put all their effort into retrieving your powers and deprive the star martial spirit in your body." Tang Yuan naturally replied, "If so, I am not interested in being the star god of your 3 God sect." ChiYan shook his head and casually said, "I don't want to have restraints nor sell my life to anyone or any force. I don't need this star god's vanity. Invite someone else." "Such a presumptuous kid." An old elder roared angrily and looked at ChiYan with a dark face. Such a shameless face. "If you weren't so lucky to have the inheritance of the star god, being just a kid of the Yang family, I would have killed you. The hierarchy doesn't care about your blood, would generously crown you the star god, and even willingly cede their own interests to you. What else do you want?" "I told you already. I don't want any restraints." ChiYan didn't display any fear as he asked with a cold face, "You old guys, do you have problems with your ears?" "Hierarchy, please forgive me for my disregard." The elder's eyes emitted a fiery rage while he bent down to conduct the ceremony toward Tang Yuan. Without waiting for Tang Yuannan to utter any words, he immediately opened his arms wide and coldly shouted, "Fire rain of the blazing sun." Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Rays of holy sunlight suddenly flew out from the elder's palms. The sunlight was like dense burning red lava, quickly making its way toward ChiYan's head. ChiYan coldly laughed and then instantly released freezing icy power from the swirl which had been created by the fusion of the Holy Spirit God, the ice-cold flame, and the earth flame. Ice wind. With ChiYan at the center, the surrounding area was blocked by the chill. The ground under his feet immediately formed into thick, solid ice. Even ChiYan's body was shortly frozen. His body looked like it had turned into an ice sculpture. The ice outside his body was about 10 meters tall, emitting a dense chill. Many beams of fire rain of the blazing sun from the elder's palms shot out, aiming for the ice around ChiYan. However, as soon as the holy cold sunlight touched the ice which had been created by the ice-cold flame and the Holy Spirit God, the holy light melted into numerous points of light. Under the horrendous icy power, those beams of light were instantly obliterated in just a blink. ChiYan sneered coldly. One of his feet that was stuck in the ice strongly stamped down. An icy white power infiltrated into the earth and flew straight to the elder who had just taken action. Wherever this icy white power passed, the ground instantly froze, which was like an icy crystal bone dragon under the ground suddenly curving, revealing its ice backbone. Shriek, shriek, shriek. The elder's face changed in fear as his eyes showed a beam of panic. He hastily put all of his efforts into his hands, fused the profound chi and the martial spirit strength, and condensed them into a huge sun. Holy light glazed cover, the elder coldly roared. The sun on his body suddenly brightened as circles of holy light dispersed, seeming to squeeze the space forcefully. Ice. ChiYan was inside the ice block, reaching out his finger toward the elder. His fingers suddenly spurted out thousands of chilly white rays of light that stabbed into the sun aperture. Creak, creak, creak. Under other people's scrutinizing looks, after the Sky Realm Elder had displayed holy light glazed cover of the three gods sect, his hair and beard were frozen. The sun had been covered by a silver ice layer then actually froze without releasing any rays of light. The entire three gods sect were all dumbfounded with bulging eyes. Chapter 342. The sun god, moon god, and star gods appeared all together. Chapter 342. The sun god, moon god, and star gods appeared all together. After the Sky Realm Elder launched the holy light glazing cover of the three gods sect, his body was fully covered by circles of holy light which were used to resist attacks from the outside. Holy light glazing cover was one of a few sacred secret treasures of the three gods sect. It could fuse with the strength of profound chi and martial spirit and then condense into splendidly colorful glazing cover. Even when warriors at the same level released their full power shot, it was still difficult to break holy light glazing cover. After this elder cast the holy light glazing cover, he prepared more of his strength to counter ChiYan's attack, wanting to shatter ChiYan's arrogance with only one strike. Unexpectedly, even though ChiYan had just entered the Nirvana realm, he could already launch a terrible icy force. Not only could the cold force penetrate the body, but it could even freeze the holy light glazing cover. Seeing this upheaval, everyone was in shock with their eyes bulging, suspiciously looking at ChiYan. The icy cold gradually intensified as the elder of the three gods sect's entire body was quickly frozen. After a while, he became a huge ice block. His body was covered with mysterious ice, and he wasn't able to move. ChiYan was also frozen, but it was not the same as the elder. Inside the ice block, not only could he act freely, but he could also continue enhancing his body strength. After the elder was trapped in the ice block, his bones and joints were locked and his body strength began to weaken. The halo created from the sunlight's condensation now became a huge ice block, producing crack, crack sounds. Even a ray of holy sunlight couldn't leak out of it, let alone injure ChiYan. Tang Yuannan was also surprised in fear as a strange light shot out from his eyes. He finally believed that ChiYan had truly fought off Ma Qi. He also felt that the tremendous energy that had instantly burst out of ChiYan's body was incredible, absolutely far surpassing his own realm. No warrior at the same level could have this kind of power. Therefore, after the entire body of the Sky Realm Elder had been frozen, he was dumbstruck as most of the other three gods' sect's disciples had no reactions. Crack, crack, crack. Strange sounds echoed from the bones inside the Elder's frozen body. For the first time, the Elder revealed fear in his eyes and shifted his eyes toward Tang Yuannan with a begging look. Tang Yuannan came to his senses after he was startled and said, "ChiYan, stop." ChiYan laughed coldly, fearlessly looked at Tang Yuannan, and then bluntly said, "He started it first. He wanted to teach me a lesson by relying on his Sky Realm cultivation base. That old man, his actions weren't slow." Tang Yuannan was stunned, forced a smile, nodded and said, "I think he won't take actions anymore. Have regard for me. Thaw the mysterious ice force on his body. It will have a great impact on the cultivation base if he stays there for too long. Nobody has bad intentions toward you. You should have mercy. Let it go." After saying those words, Tang Yuannan couldn't help but walk over in front of that elder and quietly condense the sun power. If ChiYan really wanted to kill him at all cost, then Tang Yuannan could only help the elder get out of the ice block at most. ChiYan remained cold, not replying, but instead, he silently looked at the Sky Realm Elder of the three gods sect inside the ice block. Under his attentive look, the elder's eyes were full of panic as they lost the previous griminess and replaced it with fear instead. ChiYan coldly laughed within his heart. He was very satisfied with the elder's current face. At that moment, he then gradually released another flow of power from the earth flame. He retrieved the icy power and gradually enhanced the heat at the same time, slowly melting the mysterious ice. He was controlling the powers skillfully and carefully. If the earth flame's power increased too fast, the elder's body would probably become ill and burn into bloody liquid, but if it was too slow, it wouldn't be able to dissolve the mysterious ice. Seeing that ChiYan stopped taking action, Tang Yuannan secretly released a sigh and slowly retrieved the sun power, which had been condensed earlier. Not long after, under the heat of the earth flame, the elder of the three gods sect finally was released from the ice block. His face was dripping with sweat. He moved backward and stood at the same place with other elders from the three gods sect, not daring to give any more ideas. The three gods sect's disciples, who had initially been resentful of ChiYan, now became obedient after witnessing his powerful force as well as his crazy moves. Nobody dared to show hostility in their flashing eyes, and so they let Tang Yuannan handle everything. The crowd that had been encircling ChiYan also slowly moved farther back. Through ChiYan's performance, the three gods sect's disciples were all aware of how terrifying he was. In this world where the strong ruled, after ChiYan had proved that he could easily kill anyone except for Tang Yuannan, no one dared to take any more risks. Human nature naturally made people scared of those who could exterminate others. It is hard to change. So, these disciples were very obedient and understood the situation, and they were afraid of death as well. Seeing the three gods sect disciples retreating, revealing expressions of both shock and fear, and not daring to come forward again to show their malicious intent, ChiYan was secretly happy. He was more aware that his own strength was the greatest protecting charm for him if he wanted to control this world. Possessing tremendous power, which went beyond many rules, allowed him to do whatever he liked in this crazy world without having to care about other people. Instead, it made people notice him. Although his current power was borrowed from the ice-cold flame, the earth flame, and the Holy Spirit God, the feeling of having this temporary mighty power delighted and excited him greatly. At this moment, he was more certain that enhancing his realm with his all-out effort, using the fastest speed to boost his own strength, was the most significant thing that he should work on. It should also be the goal he strives for in life. Rights, status, resources, these were only things. Once his strength had reached a certain level, it was as easy to obtain these things as flipping one's hand over, always possible to get. Open the three lakes sun moon, star. Tang Yuannan kept silent for a while, and then suddenly shouted. The faces of the three god sect's elders changed slightly. They wanted to say something, but eventually kept silent and left in a hurry. ChiYan was a little bewildered before he spoke up with a frown. I have told you already. I am not interested in becoming the star god of the three god sect. Even if you open the three lakes sun-moon star for me to learn the mystery of the star martial spirit, I will not shoulder the responsibility and danger of the three gods sect nor bind myself to it. A majority of the three gods sect's disciples was secretly irritated, but no one dared to reveal their anger. ChiYan's previous performance had made people aware of his strength. Hearing his same words, the attitude of those disciples before and after was totally different. When he hadn't shown his strength yet, his arrogance had become the excuse everyone used. Some people had taken the initiative to besiege him. One Sky Realm elder had angrily wanted to teach him a lesson. However, after he had exposed his mighty power, even though the crowd still wasn't happy, they didn't dare reveal any sign of their intentions to deal with him. Everyone stood still on the spot doing nothing. ChiYan coldly looked at the three gods sect's disciples, sneering within his heart, as he now had a more profound understanding through the change of those people's attitude. Power. Power was the eternal truth that never changed. Only overwhelming power could make people change their attitude. All right, if you really don't want to become the star god of the three gods sect, I will not force you anymore. Tang Yuannan was quiet for a while and then continued with a complicated face. But if the inheritance of the star god on your body isn't activated, the star martial spirit is merely an ornament. The star god of the last generation has chosen you, so even if only for the continuance of the predecessor inheritance, we will still let you soak in the three lakes sun-moon star so that you can learn the mystery of the star martial spirit. That one, ChiYan was stunned, looking at Tang Yuannan with strange eyes, and said bluntly, even if you do so, I will not be responsible for the three god sect. I understand. Tang Yuannan nodded and said, you can ignore the obligations of the star god in the three god sect. Now, go to the three lakes sun-moon star merely for the continuation of the star god's inheritance. I will not force you to do anything, so you should not refuse anymore. ChiYan was astonished. Although many of the three gods sect's disciples were puzzled, they somehow felt that Tang Yuannan might have his own intentions. Tang Yuannan had been a part of the three gods sect for many years with great prestige. Thanks to his efforts, the originally declining three gods sect gradually recovered and regained its current status and power in the Endless Sea. In their subconsciousness, all of the three gods sect's disciples acknowledged Tang Yuannan's ability, as they all felt that he wouldn't do anything without a purpose. If there aren't any restraints then, ChiYan's knitted eyebrows loosened, and he then leisurely said, if so, I will go to the three lakes sun-moon star. I am very curious about the star martial spirit. I want to know what I will achieve once the star martial spirit is activated. Ha ha ha, you will know soon enough. Tang Yuannan beamed a smile and then shouted, open the formation technique. Welcome the light of the sun, moon, and star gods. After Tang Yuannan shouted, the halo above everyone suddenly transformed. The peculiar halo above the crowd was like thin curtains which were being torn apart, becoming thinner and clearer. Hundreds of millions of lights like lightning flew around above the halo and intertwined with each other, creating dazzling colors, which became extremely mysterious. ChiYan raised his head to look up at the sky and realized that it was unknown when the halo turned into a seemingly huge mirror. On that halo, countless stars, a scorching sun, and a waning moon emerged. The sun, moon, and stars appeared all together. Chapter 343, Miracle. Chapter 343, Miracle. The sun, moon, and stars in the sky converged atop the halo, turning it into a huge mirror which brightly reflected all the sun, moon, and stars in the sky. Miracle. This strange scene made ChiYan shudder. He suddenly realized that an ancient sect like the Three Gods sect indeed had something that they had to pay respect to. He had stayed with the Yang family for a while, and was shocked when he saw the holy mountain on the immortal island completely formed by pure crystal stones. When comparing it to the wonders of the three gods sect, the pure holy mountains, which were made of natural crystal stones, were a masterpiece of nature. Meanwhile, this place was actually a human-made masterpiece. It was unknown who had this kind of great force to be able to create such a miracle. Looking up at the sky, he realized that the sun, moon, and countless stars were shooting out many beams of strange light. Those beams of light intertwined together, slowly condensed into clear white milky water droplets, dividing and dripping into 3 places inside the halo. "Come with me." Tang Yuan suddenly leaped up and descended to where the white water droplets were dripping and waved at ChiYan, indicating to him that ChiYan should follow. ChiYan was bewildered. He felt a little embarrassed and said, "I am only in the Nirvana realm, and if I'm only relying on my real strengths, I cannot fly." Tang Yuan was stunned and felt a little strange. He subconsciously assumed that with ChiYan's current ability, flying would be an easy task, and hence, he didn't need to drag ChiYan along with him. Now, after hearing this, he immediately understood that the previous strong power certainly didn't belong to ChiYan. "I'll take you." Tang Yuan beamed a smile, quickly came to ChiYan's side, stretched his hand, and grabbed ChiYan by his shoulders. ChiYan was instantly vigilant, subconsciously activating the strength in his body, ready to fight back. Tang Yuan was startled, immediately stopped his moves, and retracted his hand while forcing a smile. "I don't have malicious intent. You don't need to be nervous. Being careful doesn't harm anyone." ChiYan's countenance remained unchanged. He pointed to a disciple of the three gods sect and said, "Tell him to take me there." It was an old first sky of the Sky Realm warrior. Just looking at ChiYan, the old man was already frightened. He was the kind of person who cherished his life. Seeing ChiYan pointing to him, his face slightly changed. He seemed to be reluctant, hurriedly shook his head, dry laughed, and said, "My cultivation base is low. There are other people here with a higher cultivation base. You should find someone else." By saying this, he had disclosed that he was a cautious person. The one who was afraid of death was the kind of person who wouldn't act rashly. "I want you." ChiYan was persistent. The person cried out and quietly cursed ChiYan under his breath. However, he couldn't avoid it and could only look toward Tang Yuan with pleading eyes, imploring him to convince ChiYan to give up on his decision. "Take him up," Tang Yuan said impatiently with a stone-cold glare. "Go quickly. Don't waste my time." He forced a smile, bowed his head, and carefully walked over to ChiYan as he was afraid that ChiYan would suddenly launch a blow, freezing him in a split second. ChiYan was indifferent as he stared at the man, waiting until he stood in front of him to say, "As long as you are honest, I will behave properly. If you are dishonest, ha ha ha, then I will not be very kind." The person's expression changed, and now he was even more careful. When he placed his hand on ChiYan's shoulders, his eyes glanced at him while he secretly paid attention to the moving direction of the energy in ChiYan's body. He waited until he was certain that ChiYan didn't have bad intentions, then took a deep breath and carried ChiYan up to the sky. A majority of the three god sect's disciples all had eccentric faces. Their eyes looked in ChiYan's direction with complex gazes. ChiYan's caution was beyond their expectation. Not only that, but he had also been so accurate in choosing the old man who was afraid of death. Therefore, they believed that even if Tang Yuan was determined to do bad things, he would not successfully achieve the desired goal because of this person who was now carrying ChiYan along. Under Tang Yuan's lead, ChiYan and the other person slowly flew to Tang Yuan's side. When the distance between them and Tang Yuan was about 10 meters, ChiYan suddenly coughed. The old man's face changed dramatically. He immediately slowed down and didn't dare to come close to his hierarchy anymore. Although the old man was frightened of death, his eyes were not bad. He knew what ChiYan was worried about. To prevent ChiYan from doing something rash, he was very obedient and didn't want to do anything that could irritate the ChiYan. Tang Yuan didn't know whether he should laugh or cry and just shook his head slightly, then pointed below, looking at ChiYan to say, The three central god palaces down there are the three lakes sun, moon, star of the god sect. They can be considered the fundamental roots of the god sect. ChiYan bowed his head looking. His eyes were full of surprise. In the three broken palaces, there were three oval-shaped lakes with such clear water that the bottom of the lakes could be seen, and strange, radiant lights burst out. Inside each lake, there were three reflecting images of the sun, the moon, and the star respectively. In the middle of the sun lake, there was a motionless sun image which vaguely emitted faint lights. The moon lake was the same. The moon was like a big silver plate, radiating faint silver moonlight. Only the star lake was a little strange. In the star lake, countless stars, which were as big as a human fist, flickered like fireflies as they moved, following a magical trajectory. Sparkling starlight brought other people a strange, vibrant feeling. On the top of the halo, the water drops from the lights of the sun, moon, star were condensed into white water droplets which dripped down on the three lakes sun, moon, star. When the water droplets which were condensed by the sunlight fell into the sun lake, they seemed to have consciousness, slowly flying to the reflecting sun image and becoming a small part of it, making the image even brighter. The water droplets which had been condensed by the moonlight were also the same. Each milky white water droplet dripping into the moon lake also had consciousness, moving toward the reflecting moon image, making the moonlight even more radiant and moderate. However, water droplets which had been condensed by the light the stars in the sky were different. They were very accurate, falling directly into the stars inside the lake, fusing with them, making the star reflecting images become more real. Looking at the star lake below, ChiYan suddenly felt the magic of the universe. He also had a wonderful feeling that the star lake was like a galaxy with numerous misty twinkling stars which were slowly moving in accordance with the rule of the sky and earth, exceedingly marvelous and miraculous. These desolate palaces were the divine land of the three gods sect and also the center of the three islands sun, moon, star. Tang Yuanan raised his head looking at the halo, revealed a smile and explained to ChiYan, "On the top of our heads is the vast sea, and above it are the three islands sun, moon, star. The three islands sun, moon, star are, in fact, the eyes of the formation which gather the god powers of the sun, the moon, and the stars into the three lakes. During thousands of years, the collection of sunlight, moonlight, and starlight from the ether, in accordance with some marvelous way that we will never understand, has been purified and turned into milky white droplets that fall into the three lakes sun, moon, star." ChiYan was aghast, holding his head up looking at the halo, then looking at the condensing water droplets, thinking about the things that Tang Yuanan had said. A strange idea suddenly popped into his mind. The principle of this three gods sect's big ancient formation was somehow even more magical than the solar energy of his other world. When he was still in his original world, he had known many ways to use solar energy or to take advantage of some specific materials to absorb the sun's energy, turning it into electricity for people to use. The three gods sect had made it more magical. They had taken advantage of the three islands sun, moon, star, and the halo above the desolated palaces to not only absorb the solar energy and the energy of countless stars in the sky, but also to condense that power into milky white water droplets, forming magical energy for warriors to absorb directly. Obviously, the magic of the ancient formations here had far surpassed the solar energy of the other world. You have to know that the martial spirits of the three gods sect come from the three lakes sun, moon, star. For newborn babies, if they are outstanding, soaking in these three lakes sun, moon, star will give them the chance to create their own martial spirits and to absorb the strange energy of the sun, the moon, and the stars. Tang Yuanan said proudly, "In many forces of the endless sea, martial spirits are already inside most of the warriors when they are born, instead of being formed after they are born. Only the three gods sect can take advantage of the three lakes sun, moon, star to help babies who don't have martial spirits create their own martial spirits. We can say that the three gods sect creates martial spirits of warriors." ChiYan nodded and said, "Yes. Our foundation of the god sect is this place. The three islands sun, moon, Star above are only the eyes of the formation which maintain one part of this place's transformation. Those 3 islands above have plenty formation techniques, so even if ChiYan with his tremendous power can break the great sun holy light, it would be difficult to smash down the 3 islands sun-moon star. Tang Yuannan revealed a faint smile, looked at ChiYan and said, in other words, the foundation of the 3 gods sect is almost too hard to be shaken. As long as this place is not destroyed, our 3 gods sect will still be able to accumulate power and select outstanding newborn babies to train to become masters. Because of this, we can still develop even after the moon god has been gone 1,000 years. ChiYan nodded once again. My sun martial spirit, your star martial spirit, and the moon martial spirit of the moon god have been created by the 3 lakes sun-moon star. They are the first martial spirits that have been condensed and created, covering the power of the whole sun-moon star. These 3 great martial spirits are different from those of other people. Not only can they condense more power from the sun, moon, and stars, but they can also evolve and inherit. That is probably the biggest masterpiece of the person who gave birth to this palace. Therefore, those who have the 3 great martial arts are also our god sect's sun-moon star gods. Tang Yuannan's eyes brightened up when he looked at ChiYan and said, whether you admit it or not, the person who has the star martial spirit will be the 3 god sect's star god. As of now, you can soak yourself in the star lake and gather power to open the seal of the star martial spirit. After that, you will officially possess the star martial spirit. ChiYan shuddered and faintly laughed. It would be disrespectful if I refused you. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.